Take that uniform off before the clients arrive. Diane said it beside the registration tables at the Tampa Convention Center. She kept smiling while she spoke. 2 volunteers were close enough to hear her. I looked down at my Army service uniform. What's wrong with it? It's too much, Jennifer. Carl came up behind her with 3 coffee cups. This is a business summit, not a parade. One volunteer suddenly became interested in her computer. The other started sorting name badges that were already sorted. Eric stood beside me. He could have ended it with 1 sentence. Instead, he adjusted his tie. "Maybe change before the main session," he said. "We've got important people coming." I looked at my husband for a few seconds. "You knew I was wearing this. I didn't know you meant all day." Diane touched my sleeve. I moved my arm away. "The blue jacket, the medals, all of it," she whispered. "It's distracting. We want people looking at the company." Carl handed Eric a coffee. "We've worked too hard to look like some little preference business." That was the part that stayed with me. Little preference business. Walters Coastal used my veteran status on every capability statement. My service history appeared on our website. Carl mentioned it whenever a buyer asked how we qualified for certain programs, but the uniform itself embarrassed them. Eric lowered his voice. "Please don't make this a thing." I was 46 years old. I had been married to him for 11 years. He still spoke to me that way when his parents were watching. I didn't argue. I also didn't change. To understand why that morning mattered, you need to go back 3 weeks. I retired from the Army in 2022 after 24 years. I left as a lieutenant colonel after 3 deployments. By then, I was used to people making assumptions about me. Some saw the rank and expected me to be hard. Others heard that I was retired and treated me like I had stopped being useful. I could handle strangers getting me wrong. Family was different. 4 years after I retired, I was running Walters Coastal Logistics from a narrow office on South Franklin Street in Tampa. Our suite sat above a tax service and beside a dentist. The elevator smelled like hot wiring when it rained. We weren't a large company. We coordinated regional freight, warehouse transfers, and scheduled deliveries for commercial clients. Most days involved late trucks, damaged pallets, and someone insisting a deadline had never been explained. I owned 51%. Eric was our chief operating officer. He handled drivers, vendors, and daily scheduling. His father, Carl, ran sales. Diane organized company events and client meetings. It looked balanced on paper. In practice, Carl introduced Eric as the owner. Diane called the company the Walters family business. If I corrected them, they said they were speaking casually. I had put most of my retirement savings into starting it. That part was never casual. The Monday morning, 3 weeks before the summit, I arrived at 7:20. Eric's truck was already outside. So was Carl's silver sedan. That was unusual. Carl didn't come in before 9 unless breakfast was involved. When I entered, voices stopped behind the conference room door. I set my bag on my desk and waited. A few seconds later, Carl stepped out. "Morning," he said. "You're here early." "Big week. What's happening this week?" He glanced back at the conference room. "Sales things." Eric came out carrying his laptop against his chest. "You didn't tell me we had a sales meeting." "It wasn't a meeting," he said. "Dad just had some ideas." "At 7 in the morning?" Carl laughed. "Some of us still get excited about work." He walked toward the break room before I could answer. Eric leaned down and kissed my cheek. It felt automatic. I was going to fill you in. When? After we had something worth discussing. He went into his office and closed the door. At first, I thought they were chasing another warehouse account. Carl loved talking early when he believed he had a buyer interested. He treated a polite email like a signed contract. I didn't press it. At 8:10, our dispatcher called out sick. At 8:25, a client named Maya Chen called because 6 pallets of restaurant equipment were sitting at a warehouse near Port Tampa Bay. The truck we sent didn't have a lift gate. Maya's crew was waiting at a renovated hotel downtown. The loading entrance there had no dock. If we missed the delivery window, the contractor would block the freight until Friday. Eric was still in his office with Carl. I knocked once and entered. We sent the wrong truck to Maya's delivery. Eric looked up. Dispatch can handle it. Dispatch is home sick. Carl was sitting across from him with a yellow legal pad. He covered the page with his hand. Eric sighed. Call the carrier. I did. Their liftgate truck is in Lakeland, then reschedule. We can't. Carl tapped his pen. Jennifer, we're in the middle of something. So is Maya. I went back to my desk and called the warehouse manager. He had a forklift, but the hotel had no safe place to unload a standard trailer. I called 2 carriers we had used during storm season. One had a straight truck available after noon. That was too late. The second carrier had a liftgate truck 10 minutes from the warehouse. The driver was finishing a delivery, but his company wasn't approved in our system. I checked the insurance certificate myself, then I called Maya. I can get the freight there by 10:30, I said. The truck will have the right equipment. What's the catch? It'll cost us an extra $380. Cost us or cost you? Us. We made the mistake. She went quiet. Then she said, Carl told me last month you charged for redelivery. That's when a customer changes the appointment. You didn't. I heard papers moving on her end. All right, she said, 10:30. I sent the carrier approval to Eric. He replied with one word, fine. The delivery arrived at 10:22. Maya sent me a picture of the last pallet going through the service entrance. Under it, she wrote, This is why I call you. That should have felt good. Instead, I wondered why Carl had told her something different. Just before lunch, Diane came in carrying fabric samples and a cardboard tube. She spread everything across the conference table without asking. We need a cleaner look, she said. For what? I asked. The Supplier Summit. I knew Walters Coastal had registered for the Tampa Supplier Summit. We attended every year. It was part training, part networking, and part performance. Companies rented small booths and tried to look larger than they were. This year, the Department of Veterans Affairs had several sessions on federal logistics work. There was also an awards reception on the final evening. Diane held up a navy tablecloth. This one looks established. The gray one hides stains better, I said. She lowered the navy cloth. That's your contribution? You asked what I thought. I'm trying to raise our profile. Carl walked in behind her. Listen to your mother, he told Eric, though Eric wasn't in the room. Diane smiled at him. At least somebody appreciates presentation. I rolled the gray cloth between my fingers. It was heavier and cheaper. How much are these? She named a price that made me look up. For tablecloths? They're custom. We have 2 usable ones in storage. They have the old logo. The old logo is 9 months old. Carl pulled out a chair. We're not going there looking small. That phrase again, looking small. I asked Diane for the event budget. She gave me a wounded look. Eric approved it. I didn't ask who approved it. You don't need to audit every napkin. If the company pays, I need the total. Carl leaned back. This is why Eric doesn't include you in sales. I looked at him. Say that again. He rubbed the corner of his legal pad with his thumb. You get stuck in details. Money is a detail now? No one said that. You just did. Diane began collecting the fabric samples. She moved slowly, making sure everyone could see how patient she was being. We are trying to build something, she said. You act like every decision is a threat. I asked for a budget, and I said Eric approved it. Eric appeared in the doorway. What happened? Nothing, Diane said. Jennifer doesn't want us spending money on the summit. I didn't say that. Eric looked at me. Can we talk later? We're talking now. His jaw tightened. That was how our disagreements had changed during the past year. He didn't answer my question. He tried to move the conversation somewhere private. Then his parents carried away whatever version suited them. I let Diane take the samples. Send me the total before ordering anything. She didn't answer. After they left, Eric shut the conference room door. You embarrassed her. I asked what the tablecloths cost. It was your tone. What tone should I use for company expenses? He stared through the glass wall toward his office. You know how she is. Yes. Then why push? Because she works for the company. She's my mother. She can be both. He placed his hands on the table. They're helping us. Carl bills us for sales. Diane bills us for events. They could make more somewhere else. I almost asked where. Instead, I said, what was the early meeting about? Eric's eyes moved to the legal pad Carl had left behind. Potential work. What kind? Nothing solid. Commercial? He picked up the pad. We're looking at options. Then he left. I stayed in the conference room. On the whiteboard, someone had written 3 dates. One was the first day of the supplier summit. One was the awards reception. The third was a Friday at 5 in the afternoon. Nothing explained it. I took a picture before erasing the board for our afternoon operations meeting. That evening, I stayed late to finish our insurance renewal. I kept the original company records in a locked drawer beside my desk. Eric had copies of routine documents, but the signed originals stayed with me. The operating agreement was in a thick blue folder. I had insisted on that agreement when we formed the company. Eric had called it overly careful. Carl had called it military thinking. Maybe both were true. I flipped past the ownership page while looking for an attachment. My name appeared beside 51%. Eric's appeared beside 49%. A later section covered federal bids. I knew it well because I had required it. No one could submit a federal offer in the company's name without my written approval for that specific bid. Being the controlling member wasn't enough for me. I wanted the rule stated clearly. Federal work could change a small company. It could also bury one. I found the insurance attachment and returned the agreement to the drawer. Then I locked it. When I got home, Eric was in the kitchen reheating pasta. He had loosened his tie and rolled his sleeves to his elbows. I saved you some, he said. Thank you. We ate at the counter instead of the table. For several minutes, we talked about the failed delivery. He agreed the original carrier should cover part of the extra cost. He even admitted I had handled it well. Then his phone lit up beside his plate. The message preview showed his father's name. Did she ask? Eric turned the phone face down. I put down my fork. Ask what? He chewed before answering. Dad wants to know if you asked about the booth. He was sitting there when I asked about the booth. It's probably something else. Then what? Eric took his plate to the sink. You're reading too much into everything. He ran water over the plate, although it was nearly clean. I watched him for a moment. Are we in trouble? He shut off the faucet. No. Is money tighter than you told me? No. Did Carl promise a client something? No, Jennifer. Each answer came faster. I nodded once. Okay. He looked relieved. That bothered me more than the answers. The next morning, Diane emailed asking for my military biography and a photograph in uniform. She said the summit organizers wanted background on the company leadership. I called her. Which organizer asked? There was a pause. I don't remember her name. Forward me the request. I already started the form. Forward the form. Another pause. Why are you making this difficult? I'm not. Send me the link. She exhaled into the phone. Eric usually handles registration. I'm part of company leadership. No one said you weren't. Then send it. She hung up without saying goodbye. 10 minutes later, an automated message arrived from the summit portal. It said someone had requested to add me as a company representative. I created my own password. Inside the portal, my profile listed me as a veteran owner, but my contact email had been changed to Eric's company address. My attendance status also showed incomplete. Eric and Diane were confirmed. Carl was confirmed. I corrected the email. Then I registered myself for the supplier sessions and the Veterans Leadership Breakfast. A note on the breakfast page said retired service members could attend in appropriate uniform. I looked at the note for a while. My Army service uniform had been hanging inside a garment cover at the back of our home closet since retirement. I hadn't worn it in public for more than a year. I selected yes. The portal sent the confirmation directly to me. I printed it, placed it beside my keyboard, and added the breakfast to the shared company calendar under my own name. By 9 the next morning, Diane had seen it. She appeared at my office door holding her phone. "You registered for the breakfast." "I did. In uniform? That's the plan." She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. "I wish you'd talk to us first. About attending an event I'm already paying to attend? About the presentation?" I waited. Diane lowered her voice. "People make assumptions when they see a uniform." "What assumptions?" "That we're leaning too heavily on the veteran angle. You asked for my military biography yesterday. That's different." "How?" "It's for company material." I leaned back in my chair. "Who asked for it?" "I told you. The summit people." "Which summit people?" Her mouth tightened. "You've become very suspicious. I asked for a name." "I don't keep track of everyone who emails me. You said you started the form. Show me the form." She looked toward the glass wall. Eric's office was empty. He was downstairs meeting a driver. "This is exactly what Carl means," she said. "Everything has to become an interrogation. You made a request using my service record. I'm asking where it's going. Forget it." She opened the door. "Diane." She turned. "Don't submit my photograph anywhere without showing me first." Her face changed. "Not much, but enough. I would never misuse your photograph. I didn't say you would. You implied it. I gave you a clear instruction." She walked out without answering. 10 minutes later, I heard her telling Carl that I had accused her of stealing my identity. I stayed at my desk. That was our pattern. Diane would change my words until she became the injured person. Carl would defend her. Eric would ask me to smooth things over. By the end, the original question disappeared. I usually let it. Around 11, Eric came back upstairs carrying a box of printer paper. Diane met him near the supply closet. They spoke quietly for several minutes. Then he came into my office. "What did you say to Mom?" "I told her not to submit my picture without showing me. She thinks you accused her of something." I asked who requested my biography. "Why does that matter?" Because she couldn't answer. He set the printer paper on the floor. "She's organizing the booth. She probably saw an optional profile section. Then she should say that. You know she gets flustered. Your mother does not get flustered." Eric rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Can you just call her and explain?" "I already explained." "No, you gave her an order. It's my photograph. She's trying to help us." I turned my monitor toward him. The summit portal was still open. "Why was my contact email changed to yours?" He glanced at the screen. "I don't know." "You handle registration." "So does Mom. Did you change it?" "I might have used my email when I started the company profile." "You didn't use your email for Carl. Carl isn't the controlling owner." That answer came too quickly. I looked at him. "What does my ownership have to do with where my summit emails go?" "Nothing." "I'm saying the system may treat you differently." "Then why not tell me?" There was nothing to tell. He bent down and picked up the printer paper. "Please call Mom." I didn't. At lunch, I used the contact button in the portal. I asked whether the organizers had requested a military biography or a uniform photograph from our company. A coordinator named Renee Martin called me 20 minutes later. "No, ma'am," she said. "We don't collect service photographs for general registration. What about a leadership profile? We have an optional company spotlight. Did Walters Coastal request one?" I heard her typing. "Yes. The request came from your company account last Thursday. Which person submitted it?" "I only see the primary contact. Who is that?" "Eric Walters." I wrote his name on a sticky note, although I didn't need to. What does the spotlight require? A short company history, leadership information, and 2 photographs. It's mostly used for social media. Does it affect access to any summit events? No. Does it affect awards? No, ma'am. Does it affect contract opportunities? Not at all. I thanked her. Before we ended the call, she added, "Your individual account is active now. You should receive your own notices from this point forward." That was one small answer. Diane had lied about the organizers asking for my biography. Eric had initiated the spotlight. Neither had included me in the decision. I still didn't know why they were acting secretive. A social media feature wasn't worth an early meeting or a hidden deadline. I emailed Eric and Diane together. I wrote, Renee Martin confirmed the military biography and photograph were not requested by the summit. Please send me the complete spotlight draft before using my name, image, rank, or service history. Diane replied first, understood. Eric didn't reply at all. That Friday, we had dinner at Carl and Diane's house. We did that twice a month. The schedule had started years earlier, when Eric's job required travel. Even after he stopped traveling, the dinners continued. Diane made baked chicken, green beans, and rice. She served Carl first, then Eric. She placed the bowl near me without comment. Carl poured wine. To the summit, he said. Eric raised his glass. Diane did too. I lifted mine a few inches. Carl smiled. This could be the year people finally notice us. Commercial buyers already notice us, I said. You know what I mean? I don't. He exchanged a look with Eric. Bigger opportunities, Carl said. A different level. What opportunities? Nothing we can discuss yet. Diane cut into her chicken. You'll only make her nervous. I'm sitting right here, I said. Eric touched my knee under the table. Dad's talking generally. Carl leaned back. I've been doing sales since before either of you knew what a bill of lading was. Sometimes you have to let a possibility develop. Then why bring it up? Because we're having a family dinner. I put down my fork. Am I family for this conversation? Diane looked offended. What kind of question is that? A direct one. Of course you're family. Then tell me what Carl means. Eric's hand left my knee. Carl drank his wine. We've had encouraging conversations, he said. That's all. With whom? People at the summit. The summit hasn't started. People attending the summit. Commercial or government. He looked at Eric again. Eric said, Jennifer, there's nothing ready for review. That wasn't an answer. I turned back to my plate. Diane began talking about flowers for the reception tables. Within a minute, everyone followed her. The question was gone. After dinner, Carl took us into his den to show us the booth design. He had printed it on glossy paper. The top said, Walters Coastal Logistics in large blue letters. Under that was a photograph of Eric standing beside one of our contracted trucks. Carl appeared in a smaller photograph shaking hands with a client. Diane was shown arranging place cards at a company luncheon. My photograph wasn't there. Near the bottom, one sentence read, A proud Walters family company serving Florida businesses. Below that, in smaller type, it said, Veteran-owned and operated. I held the page with both hands. Who operates the company in this design? Carl chuckled. All of us. I'm not in it. We didn't have a good business photograph of you. You asked for one in uniform. That wouldn't fit this layout, Diane said. I looked at her. Then why did you ask? For the spotlight. So I fit the spotlight as a veteran, but not the booth as an owner. Diane folded her arms. You said you wanted approval before we used your picture. I asked to see the draft, and now you're upset because we respected that. Eric took the page from me. It's an early version. Carl pointed to the lower sentence. You're represented by a designation. It's important. Apparently not enough for my name. Carl's cheeks reddened. The company is called Walters Coastal because Eric and I agreed on that name. Exactly. No, Carl. Not exactly. The room went quiet. 3 years earlier, I had agreed to use the Walters name because Eric said his local contacts knew it. Carl had spent years in Tampa sales. He knew freight brokers, warehouse managers, and purchasing directors. I had just left the Army. My contacts were spread across different states. Some had retired, others were still serving. At the time, using the Walters name felt practical. It also felt like joining something. I didn't say that aloud. Eric set the booth design on the desk. We'll add your name. Carl gave a short laugh. Now the whole thing has to be redesigned. It's a text line, I said. It affects the balance. Diane touched his arm. Don't bother. She said it like I had refused a gift. We left 10 minutes later. In the truck, Eric waited until we reached the end of the street. "You didn't need to embarrass Dad. I asked why the owner's name wasn't on the booth. He knows you're the owner, does he? Come on, he introduces you as the owner. It's conversational. He calls it a Walters family company. It is." I turned toward him. "Is Soto family?" He kept his eyes on the road. "That's not fair. It's my name. You chose not to change it when we married, and you said that was fine. It is fine. Then why am I missing from the company's story?" "You're not missing. The veteran-owned line refers to you. That's not a name." He stopped at a red light. "What do you want me to say? I want you to notice it before I have to point it out." The light changed. A car behind us tapped its horn. Eric drove on. When we reached home, I went straight to the bedroom. My uniform was still at the back of the closet inside its dark garment cover. Eric stood in the doorway. "Are you really wearing it?" "Yes." "Why?" "The breakfast invitation says it's appropriate." "That's not what I asked." I slid 2 hangers aside. "I know." He stepped into the room. "Mom thinks you're doing it to make a point. Your mother asked for a photograph of me wearing it. For publicity." "That keeps sounding worse. She's proud of your service." "Is she proud of me?" Eric looked tired. "Why are you making me choose between you and my parents?" "I asked you a question about a booth. It's never one question with you." I let go of the garment cover. "No, it becomes 6 questions because nobody answers the first one." He walked back into the hall. I heard the television turn on in the living room. I stayed by the closet. The hardest part wasn't that Carl and Diane treated me like a qualification attached to their family company. It was that I had helped make it easy. I had allowed Carl to introduce Eric as the owner because correcting him in front of clients felt awkward. I had let Diane use my service history on brochures I barely reviewed. I had let Eric receive company notices meant for me because he said it was more efficient. Every time, I told myself I was protecting the marriage. Really, I was waiting for Eric to protect my place without being asked. The following Monday, a revised booth design arrived in my inbox. My name had been added at the bottom beside the veteran-owned line. The letters were smaller than Eric's, but they were there. Diane wrote, "I hope this resolves the issue." I replied, "Approved for the booth only." Then I opened the summit portal. My personal email was still attached. My registration was still active. For the first time, I could see notices that had previously gone only to Eric. There were orientation schedules, parking instructions, reception details, and company profile reminders. Nothing explained the Friday deadline on Carl's whiteboard. I changed my notification settings so every new summit message would come directly to me. A warning appeared saying the primary company contact would be notified. I clicked confirm anyway. The notice reached Eric before he finished his first coffee. He came out of his office with his phone in one hand. "Did you change the Summit account?" I changed my notifications. Why? So I receive messages addressed to me. "You're going to create duplicates. I can delete duplicates. That's not the point." He stood in front of my desk. Carl was watching from the break room. "What is the point?" I asked. "We have a system. I wasn't included in it." "You're included in everything that matters." Then receiving the messages shouldn't hurt anything. Eric looked at my printed confirmation. "You don't trust me." I didn't say that. "You didn't have to." Carl walked over with his coffee. "What's going on?" "Nothing," Eric said. Carl looked at my screen. "She changed something." I turned on my own notifications. "For the summit?" he asked. "Yes." He glanced at Eric. It was brief. If I hadn't already been watching them, I might have missed it. Carl sipped his coffee. "Those emails are mostly junk. Then I'll delete them. We don't need 3 people handling the same thing. Diane handles events. Eric handles operations. I handle ownership matters." Carl gave a small laugh. "It's a conference, Jennifer. Then there's no problem." Eric motioned toward the conference room. "Can I talk to you?" I followed him inside. He shut the door. This is becoming uncomfortable. For whom? For everybody. I asked for access to my own registration. "You had access. My email was changed. I told you that could have happened when I set up the profile." "No, you said you might have used your email." He pulled out a chair but didn't sit. "Same difference." It isn't. You're acting like I broke into something. I'm asking why company information meant for me went to you, because I run operations. You run daily operations." He looked through the glass at Carl. I noticed that too. I said, "What's the Friday deadline?" "What Friday deadline?" "The date that was on the whiteboard." His face stayed still. Then he shrugged. "Probably the booth materials. Diane said the booth order was already placed. Final artwork then. The date was a Friday." "So?" "At 5. Printers have deadlines." "Which printer?" He stared at me. "Why?" "I need to know where company money is going." "Gulf Print." We had used Gulf Print for vehicle decals and presentation folders. Their office was east of downtown. I nodded. "All right." Eric waited as if he expected another question. I opened the conference room door. He said, "Are we done?" "For now." I returned to my desk and finished the carrier invoices first. That mattered to me. I didn't want suspicion turning me careless. At 10:30, I called Gulf Print. A woman in production pulled up our order. Diane had approved 2 tablecloths, a backdrop, 3 foam boards, and 500 brochures. "The artwork is finalized," she said. "When was the deadline?" "Last Wednesday." "Are there any changes due this Friday?" "No. Everything goes into production tomorrow." "Any payment due Friday?" "It's already paid." I thanked her and ended the call. Eric had lied, not softened an answer, not guessed wrong. He had named a vendor and attached that vendor to a deadline that didn't exist. I wrote the date on a clean sheet of paper. Beside it, I wrote 5 in the afternoon. Then I folded the sheet and put it in my notebook. Until that moment, I had still been trying to understand why they were leaving me out. I thought maybe Carl wanted credit. Maybe Diane wanted control of the summit. Maybe Eric wanted to avoid another argument between us. The lie changed the question. I needed to know what they were doing. I didn't walk into Eric's office and confront him. If I did, he would say he had confused the dates. Carl would support him. Diane would say I was looking for reasons to be offended. So I checked what I already had the right to check. Our shared company calendar showed a private meeting that Friday from 3 until 5. Eric created it. Carl and Diane were invited. I wasn't. The subject line said, "Final review." No client was listed. No location was listed. The meeting room was our conference room. I checked the company credit card. The summit expenses were there, including Diane's print order. Nothing unusual appeared that week. Then I opened our shared sales tracker. Carl had added 6 prospects since the beginning of the month. 5 were local companies. The 6th entry said only federal. The estimated value field was blank. The contact field was blank. The next action field said, await status. I took a screenshot. Carl came out of the break room while I was saving it. "What are you working on?" "Sales tracker." His cup stopped halfway to his mouth. "Why?" "We have an operations meeting this afternoon. That federal entry isn't ready. I didn't ask about it." "You were looking at it. It's in the company tracker." He set down his coffee. "That's a placeholder." "For what?" "Possible work." "With which agency?" "I don't have enough information yet. Then what status are you waiting for?" His expression changed. Not fear, annoyance. "You know sales has a process. So does ownership. Here we go." He picked up his coffee and walked away. At 2, the 4 of us sat in the conference room for our regular Monday meeting. I always ran those meetings. Eric gave the driver report. Carl covered sales. Diane covered upcoming events. That afternoon, Eric rushed through his numbers. "Any major issues?" I asked. "No. We paid an extra carrier last week because of the wrong truck. That's resolved. Did the original carrier agree to share the cost?" "I'm handling it." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm handling it." I wrote a note beside his report. Carl pushed his chair back. "Do we need to spend 20 minutes on $300? 380? Fine. 380. It's not the amount. We need to know who caused the error." Eric said, "Dispatch selected the equipment. Dispatch was using the carrier information in our system. Who entered it?" He looked down at his page. "I did. Then call the carrier today." He gave one short nod. That was the tiny piece of the company I still understood. A wrong truck had a cause, a missed delivery had a cost. Someone fixed it, and the next shipment went out correctly. Family problems didn't stay that clean. I turned to Carl. Sales. He mentioned 2 renewal conversations and a hotel group considering regional service. Then he closed his folder. I waited. Anything else? No. What about the federal entry? Diane shifted in her chair. Carl looked at Eric. It's not an active account. Then why is it in the tracker? Because I'm tracking it. What agency? He pressed his lips together. The VA. That was the first useful answer. What kind of work? Logistics. We're a logistics company. It's an early opportunity. How early? We haven't heard anything official. I looked at Eric. Do you know about it? Yes. How long? A few weeks. You told me there was nothing to discuss. There wasn't. There was enough to hold a meeting at 7 in the morning. Carl leaned forward. We didn't want to get your hopes up. I almost laughed. My hopes? You've been worried about cash. I'm worried because cash is tight. Exactly, he said. We wanted to bring you something real. Did you submit anything? No one has offered us a contract, Eric said. I turned to him. That wasn't my question. Diane began straightening the papers in front of her. Carl answered. We expressed interest. How? The normal way, which is a supplier form. Who completed it? I started it. Eric reviewed it. Did it require ownership information? Carl looked offended. Every government form requires ownership information. Did you use mine? You own the company? Did you use my name? Of course. What else? Eric spoke before Carl could. Basic company details. Nothing that commits us. I kept my eyes on him. Show me. It's in the portal. Which portal? The supplier system. Show me after this meeting. Carl closed his folder harder than necessary. This is why we waited. Because I asked to see forms with my name on them. Because you treat every opportunity like a threat. I treat signatures and certifications seriously. No one forged your signature, he said. The room became quiet. I hadn't mentioned a signature. Carl seemed to realize it at the same moment I did. He lifted both hands. I'm saying there's no issue. What certification did you submit? None. Then why mention forgery? It was an expression. That's an unusual expression. Diane pushed her chair back. I don't feel well. She stood and left the room. Carl immediately followed her. Eric remained seated. I waited until the door closed. Show me the supplier form. I can't right now. Why? It's linked to Dad's sales account. You said it was in the portal. It is. Which portal? He rubbed his palms against his pants. The Summit registration system links to several programs. I have Summit access, not to Dad's submission. You told me this was basic company information. It is. Then print it. I'll get it. When? After I talk to Dad. Why do you need his permission? I don't need his permission. I need his login. I sat back. You let Carl submit government interest forms through an account only he controls? It's not a bid. Then what is it? A lead. A lead with a Friday deadline? His eyes moved to me. I hadn't told him Gulf Print confirmed the booth schedule. He stood. I have work to do. So do I. He left the conference room. The meeting ended without Diane's event report. That evening, Eric came home after 8. He'd already eaten. I was at the kitchen counter reviewing our monthly expenses. He put his keys in the bowl near the door. You called the printer. It wasn't a question. Yes. Why would you do that? You told me the Friday deadline was for artwork. I was mistaken. You named Gulf Print because that was the first deadline I remembered. Their deadline was last Wednesday. He opened the refrigerator and stared inside. Do you want something? I asked. No. Then close the door. He did. I turned the laptop so he could see the cash report. We haven't taken an owner distribution in 6 weeks. We're investing in growth. We're paying ourselves salaries. Your parents are receiving full fees. They work. So do I. No one said you don't. You keep saying that after someone treats me like I don't. He leaned against the refrigerator. You agreed to let me run operations. I didn't agree to be kept away from federal submissions. There is no federal submission. Carl said there was a supplier form, interest form, with my ownership information. He looked toward the dark living room. If this develops, it could solve a lot. What does that mean? We've lost 2 customers since January. One downsized, the other moved its warehouse. Revenue is still gone, I know. I read the statements. Then you know we need something bigger. I close the laptop. How much have you committed? Nothing. How much has Carl committed? Nothing. Did either of you use my signature? His head came up. No. It was the first direct answer he had given me. I wanted to believe it. Honestly, part of me still did. This company wasn't just our income. It held most of what I had saved after retirement. It was also the place where Eric and I had built our days together. We drove to work in separate vehicles, but we came home with the same problems. We talked about invoices in bed. We chose vacations around client renewals. If I pulled at one loose thread, it wouldn't stay inside the office. That was my dependence. I had spent years believing the marriage protected the company, and the company protected the marriage. Now Eric was using one to keep me quiet about the other. The next day, I requested owner-level access to every Summit section connected to our company profile. The portal asked me to verify my identity and ownership percentage. I completed both steps. An hour later, my access changed. Several new menu items appeared. Most were general supplier resources. One section remained locked and displayed a message saying materials would become available to authorized company representatives after official release. Below it was a release time, Monday at 9 in the morning. The summit began Tuesday. I added a reminder to my private calendar. On Friday, Carl, Diane, and Eric closed themselves in the conference room at 3. At 4:55, Diane came out and stood beside the copier while it printed a single page. She folded that page before carrying it back inside. At 5, I heard Carl say, "Done." No one came to tell me what they had completed. Monday morning, I logged into the portal at 8:58. At exactly 9, the locked section opened. A new message appeared at the top of the screen. "Your finalist packet is ready." I opened it. The first page showed the Summit logo and Walters Coastal's company name. Under that were the words, "Federal Logistics Contract Finalist." I stopped reading. Carl had called it an early opportunity. Eric had called it an interest form. Neither had said finalist. I downloaded the packet to my laptop. Then I looked through the glass wall. Eric was in his office. Carl was at his desk. Diane was talking to the receptionist from the dentist's office in the hallway. I closed my laptop and put it in my bag. Eric saw me stand. "Where are you going?" "I need quiet." "For what?" "Work." I walked out before he could ask again. There was a coffee shop 2 blocks south. I took a table near the back and ordered plain coffee. The morning crowd had already thinned. A man near the window was wearing headphones. 2 women were sharing a pastry near the door. No one knew me. That was what I needed. I opened the packet again. The contract was for regional storage coordination and scheduled delivery support for VA facilities. Walters Coastal wouldn't own the warehouses or trucks. We would coordinate approved vendors, track shipments, and make sure deliveries arrived inside required windows. It was work we could perform. That made it worse. The agency expected to pay $3,200,000 over the contract period if all options were used. It was more revenue than Walters Coastal had earned since we opened. I read that section twice. Then I went to the submission history. The initial offer had been filed under Eric's company account. Carl was listed as the sales contact. Eric was listed as chief operating officer. I was listed as managing member and controlling owner. Beside my name was an owner authorization marked complete. My coffee sat untouched. The packet included a link to the certification record. I opened it. The agency portal asked me to sign in again. After that, it displayed the form exactly as submitted. The first section confirmed that I owned 51% of the company. The second confirmed Walters Coastal qualified as a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business. The third said the controlling owner had reviewed and approved the federal offer. Below that was my name. Below my name was my signature. For a few seconds, I thought I might have signed something and forgotten. That's the kind of doubt people create when they've spent weeks telling you that you're overreacting. Then I enlarged the image. I knew that signature. 6 months earlier, I had signed an insurance renewal by hand because the broker's system wasn't working. I scanned the page and emailed it to Eric. The pen had skipped slightly through the letter S in Soto. The final stroke rose farther than usual because the paper had shifted under my wrist. The signature on the federal certification had the same skip, the same long final stroke. It wasn't similar, it was copied. I checked the submission details. The certification had been uploaded the previous Friday at 4:57 in the afternoon, 3 minutes before Carl said, "Done." I sat back and listened to the coffee grinder behind the counter. The finalist packet had been released because the contracting office had completed its first review. Walters Coastal had passed that review using a certification I had never seen. The packet included the remaining schedule. Finalists had until Thursday at 5 in the afternoon to confirm or correct all ownership certifications. The awards reception would take place during the summit the following week. There was a contact name and phone number for questions. I didn't call yet. I took screenshots of the certification, the submission history, and the deadline. Then I downloaded complete copies. I emailed them to my personal address and saved another copy on an encrypted drive I kept in my bag. That was habit, not drama. When a record mattered, I kept the original and a working copy. I finished reading the packet. There were pricing tables, staffing plans, and vendor lists. Eric had built a serious proposal. Carl had provided projected sales figures. Some of the language came from our capability statements. Other sections described procedures I had created during our first year. They had used my work. They had used my ownership. They had used my service record. Then they had left me out of the decision. At the end was a short notice. Any correction affecting eligibility had to be submitted by the controlling owner or an authorized representative. That gave me 4 days. It also meant doing nothing wasn't safe. The portal already showed an approval carrying my signature. If I stayed silent, the contracting office had no reason to know it was false. I closed the laptop. My hands were steady until I reached for the coffee. The cup clicked against the saucer. I put it down. Then I called Eric. He answered after the first ring. "Where are you? Did you copy my signature?" Silence. I heard his office door close. "What are you talking about?" "The VA certification submitted Friday at 4:57. Another silence. Then he said, "You opened the packet?" "Yes. You shouldn't discuss that in public." "Did you copy my signature?" "It's an electronic certification." "That's not an answer. We needed to submit before the deadline." "Did you place an image of my signature on that form?" "Keep your voice down." I wasn't speaking loudly. "Answer me." He breathed into the phone. Dad had the document ready. That signature came from my insurance renewal. He had access to the company files. Who put it on the certification? I uploaded the packet. Who copied the signature? I don't know exactly. You submitted it. Jennifer, come back to the office. No, we need to talk through this. We're talking now, not over the phone. Then answer one question. Did I approve that bid? He didn't speak. Eric. No. The coffee shop sounds returned all at once. Cups, chairs, the refrigerator behind the counter. I said, remove the certification. We can't just remove one page, then withdraw the submission. Absolutely not. His answer came faster than anything else he had said. You submitted a federal offer using my signature. We're a finalist. I know. Do you understand what that means? I understand exactly what it means. No, you don't. We beat companies 10 times our size. You didn't have my approval. We were going to tell you when it became real. It became real when you put my name on it. We didn't know we'd make the final round. That doesn't matter. It matters to the business. I lowered my voice further. Who knew? He hesitated. Dad and Mom. Diane knew about the bid? She helped organize the submission schedule. She's the events director. She can read a calendar. That explains the private meetings. We were trying to keep everything moving. You were trying to keep me from seeing it. Because you would have stopped us before we had a chance. He said it without hesitation. That was the first honest answer. I looked at the packet on my screen. So you knew I wouldn't approve. We knew you'd want months of review. I would have wanted to read the contract. We didn't have months. You could have brought it to me when Carl found it. Dad said you'd focus on every possible risk. That's my responsibility. Your responsibility is also to the company. My responsibility is not to sign forms I haven't read. You didn't sign it. The words hung there. Eric must have heard them too. He tried again. I mean, it was an electronic process. Nobody was pretending you sat there with a pen. My signature is on the page. It's a company document. My signature isn't company property. He went quiet. I asked, why did Diane request my uniform photograph? That had nothing to do with the bid. Then what was it for? The spotlight. Why now? Because being featured helps. With whom? People. Buyers. The committee. I don't know. You do know. Dad and Mom thought we should present the strongest version of the company. The version where my military service is visible and I'm not. That's not fair. It's accurate. He exhaled. Come back. We'll sit down. We'll show you everything. I already have everything you submitted. You have the packet. You don't have the context. What context makes a copied signature acceptable? $3,200,000. He said the amount quietly, like money could lower the temperature of what he had done. I waited. Eric continued. Dad pushed because he knew this could save us. Mom agreed. They both believed that once we became finalists, you'd see the opportunity and protect the family. Protect the family from what? From losing this. You mean protect you from the consequences of submitting it. That's not what I said. It's what you meant. Jennifer, the company needs this contract. The company needed my consent first. We can fix the process. The process isn't the only problem. You're upset. I understand. No, you understand that I found out. I'm trying to keep us from making a decision while you're angry. You already made the decision. He didn't answer. I looked at the deadline again. Do not submit another certification. We still have corrections to make. Do not use my name, signature, ownership, or service information on anything else. We have to finish the finalist requirements. You have no authority to finish them for me. I'm the chief operating officer. You are not the controlling owner. His voice hardened. So now you're pulling rank at work? This isn't rank. It's ownership. Same tone. No, you're hearing a boundary. He was silent for several seconds. Then he said, Dad's gonna lose his mind. That's not my responsibility. This affects all of us. It should have affected all of us before Friday. I ended the call. My phone rang again immediately. I let it ring. A message from Carl appeared. Please return to the office before taking any action. Then Diane sent one. We did this for the family. I didn't reply. I signed back into the agency portal. My account permissions now included ownership verification. Eric's account remained the primary company contact, but the final managing member section required a separate confirmation. I changed the owner contact email to mine. Then I removed Eric's ability to edit the ownership section. The portal displayed a warning. Changes to company permissions will be recorded and shared with registered representatives. I confirmed the change. That deliberate move worked. When I refreshed the page, the ownership section was locked to my account. They could still view the packet. They could still work on pricing and scheduling. They could not submit another statement as me through that portal. It was a practical win. It also told them I was no longer waiting for an explanation. Eric called again. This time, I answered. What did you change? My access. You locked me out. Only from my certification. We have a correction meeting this afternoon. Cancel it. We can't. Then hold it without pretending I approved anything. Dad is already calling our vendors. For what? Final availability. They were listed before we were finalists. We needed preliminary commitments. Did they sign anything? Letters of availability. Using whose authority? Mine. That answer was at least possible. As Chief Operating Officer, Eric could discuss vendor capacity. He could not approve the federal bid on my behalf. I said, send me every vendor letter. This is getting out of control. It was out of control when you copied my signature. Stop saying I copied it, you uploaded it. You're going to destroy 3 months of work over 1 page. 3 months. I looked at the date. They had started pursuing the contract before Diane ever mentioned the summit, before the early meetings, before the federal entry appeared in the sales tracker. How long has Carl known about this? Eric didn't answer. 3 months? We attended an information session in April. Who attended? Dad and me. Did you use company time? Of course we used company time. Did you tell me we discussed federal opportunities? No. Carl complained that federal paperwork was too slow. That was a general conversation. You let me believe we weren't pursuing it. We didn't know if we qualified. You use my status to qualify. The company qualifies, because I control it. He sighed. We're going in circles. No, I'm finding out how long the circle has been around me. I ended the call again. Then I opened the contact page in the finalist packet. I read the contracting officer's instructions twice. Questions had to be submitted through the portal, so every action remained part of the official record. I started a message. I wrote that I was the controlling owner listed in the packet. I said I had accessed the submitted certification that morning. I asked what procedure applied when an owner authorization had been submitted without that owner's knowledge. I did not accuse anyone by name. I did not attach the copied signature yet. My finger rested over the send button. Once I asked that question, the problem would leave our family and enter the contract record. There would be no quiet way to pretend it had never happened. At 11:12, I sent it. Then I packed my laptop and returned to South Franklin Street. Carl's sedan was parked across 2 spaces. Diane was standing inside the front window. She saw me before I reached the stairs. By the time I opened the office door, all 3 of them were waiting in the conference room. Eric opened the conference room door. Come in, I'm putting my bag down first. Carl stood. We need to handle this now. I've been handling it since 9. I carried my bag to my office and locked the laptop inside my desk. Then I returned with my notebook. Diane had placed a glass of water at my usual seat. I remained standing. Carl pointed to the chair. Sit down, Jennifer. No. His hand dropped. Eric said, Did you contact the contracting office? Yes. Diane closed her eyes. Carl stared at me. What did you say? I asked what procedure applies when an owner certification was submitted without the owner's knowledge. You put that in writing? Yes. Do you have any idea what you've done? I created an accurate record. You accused your own company of fraud. I didn't use that word. They will. Then the certification shouldn't have been submitted. Diane pushed the water toward the empty chair. We were going to explain everything tonight. You had 3 months. We didn't have 3 months, Carl said. We had a possibility. There's a difference. You had a federal opportunity using my ownership. You always say it's our company. It is. Then why are you separating yourself now? I'm separating my approval from something I didn't approve. Eric moved closer. We can correct the certification. That's what the finalist period is for. Correct it how? You review the bid. We answer your questions. Then you ratify the owner section. And if I don't? Carl laughed once. You will. I looked at him. He seemed surprised that he'd said it aloud. Diane touched his wrist. What Carl means is you'll understand once you see how strong the offer is. I saw it. All of it? Eric asked. All 146 pages. He glanced at my notebook. When? This morning. You couldn't have reviewed it properly in 2 hours. I could identify a copied signature in 2 seconds. Carl leaned across the table. No one stole money. No one opened a bank account. We used a digital signature on a business form. You used my digital signature. For your business. Without permission. You've signed hundreds of company documents. Not that one. Diane spoke softly. Why are you determined to see the worst in us? I turned to her. Who asked for my photograph? She looked at Eric. Answer me. The spotlight was my idea. Why a uniform photograph? Because people respect service. Last week, you said wearing the uniform leaned too heavily on the veteran angle. That was about the breakfast. What's the difference? The setting. The difference is who controls the image. Her face went still. Carl said, "That's enough." "No," I said, "it isn't." Eric pulled out the chair beside mine. "Can we focus on the contract?" "That is what I'm doing. We have 4 days to complete finalist corrections. If you send a clean certification, this stays on track. I'm not sending anything until I understand every commitment you made. We made a proposal. You called vendors. We needed availability. You projected staffing. We can hire after award. You included procedures I wrote. They belong to the company. You included my service history. The company's eligibility depends on it, and you included my signature." Eric looked down. Carl took over. "We have already spent months preparing. I made calls. Diane built the summit schedule around the right people. Eric worked nights on pricing. You weren't carrying that weight. I wasn't allowed to know it existed. Because you would have killed it. Then you knew you lacked consent. We knew you lacked vision." Eric said, "Dad." Carl ignored him. "You're good at fixing trucks and checking invoices. I'll give you that. But you see danger everywhere. Some of us are trying to grow." I closed my notebook. "Send me every vendor letter by 2 this afternoon." Carl's mouth opened. I continued. "Send the pricing worksheets, staffing assumptions, and every message where anyone represented that the offer had my approval. You don't get to order me around," he said. "I'm the controlling member. You're my daughter-in-law. In this office, you're the sales director." Diane stood. "We should leave." "No," Eric said. She looked at him. He turned to me. "If we give you everything, will you consider ratifying?" "I'll consider the documents." "That isn't what I asked. It's the answer I have." Carl gathered his folder. "I'm not handing over private sales conversations. There are no private company sales conversations from the company sales director. Some contacts speak to me because they trust me. Then you can remove their personal comments. The business commitments stay." He looked at Eric. Eric said nothing. Carl walked out. Diane followed. A few seconds later, the office door slammed. Eric stayed in the conference room. "You enjoyed that?" "No. You finally got to put Dad in his place. I asked for records. You made him look like an employee. He is an employee. He helped build this company. So did I. He brought the clients. I brought the money." Eric flinched. "I rarely said that. I had avoided it because I never wanted my investment to become a weapon inside our marriage. That silence had become useful to everyone except me. I said, 2 o'clock. Then I returned to my office. At 12:15, Maya called. "I need to ask you something off the record," she said. "I can listen. I can't promise it stays off a company record if it affects your account." "That's fair." She lowered her voice. "Is Walters Coastal changing its service model?" Not that I approved. Carl called our purchasing manager Friday. "What did he say?" "He said you were preparing for major federal volume. He asked whether we could move our Tuesday delivery window to Thursdays beginning next month." I sat up. "Did your purchasing manager agree?" "No." She came to me because the whole conversation felt strange. Did Carl mention an agency? He said VA facilities. That was no longer internal. Did he say the contract had been awarded? Not exactly. What exactly did he say? Maya paused. He said, "When the VA work comes through, we'll need flexibility from our long-term partners." I wrote it down. Did he offer a new rate? He offered to hold our current rate for another year. Our current rate was already thin. Holding it would remove any room for fuel increases. Did he send that in writing? Yes. Forward it to me. Am I getting him in trouble? No. You're asking your vendor to explain a proposed change. She sent the email while we were still speaking. Carl's message had gone out Friday morning, hours before the finalist submission closed. It said Walters Coastal anticipated significant federal growth and wanted to preserve capacity for valued commercial clients. In exchange for moving Maya's delivery window, he offered a 12-month rate guarantee. He copied Eric. He did not copy me. I asked Maya, "Has our service changed?" "Not yet." "Do you want it to?" "No." "Then nothing changes. Can you put that in writing?" "Yes." I emailed her before ending the call. I confirmed her existing schedule and said no rate or service changes would take effect without a signed amendment. That gave Maya an answer. It gave me another obligation. Carl had used an expected federal award to make promises to commercial clients. If the bid disappeared, those promises would still exist. If we won, the service changes could damage the accounts keeping us alive. At 1:30, Eric brought a flash drive into my office. "Most of the files are here." "Most?" "Dad won't release his personal messages. His message to Maya was sent from his company account." Eric's face changed. "She called you." "Yes." "He was trying to protect capacity. He promised a rate freeze. We can manage that." "Have you checked fuel projections?" "No, I have." He put the flash drive on my desk. "This is what I mean. We bring you an opportunity and you find a reason it won't work. You offered capacity we haven't secured at prices we haven't tested. The proposal is competitive. That doesn't mean it's profitable. The pricing is on the drive. Did you approve Carl contacting commercial clients?" "I knew he was having conversations. Did you know what he promised Maya?" "Not the exact terms." "Were there others?" He looked away. "How many?" "3. Send them to me." Jennifer. "How many rate commitments did Carl make?" 2. The third client only discussed scheduling. "And our vendors? They're holding preliminary capacity." "At what cost?" "No cost unless we activate." "Is that in writing?" "On the drive. I picked it up. You need to tell Carl he cannot make another commitment. He won't take that well from me." "Then I'll tell him." "That'll make everything worse." "He is promising services in my company based on a contract we do not have. Our company." "Then act like it." Eric stood there for a moment. "I'll call him. Today." He left. The flash drive contained 4 folders. The proposal folder matched what I had downloaded. The vendor folder held letters from 2 trucking companies and 1 warehouse operator. Each letter said capacity was subject to final pricing. That was better than I expected. The pricing folder was worse. Eric's projections assumed the VA would use the maximum monthly volume by the 3rd month. He had spread administrative costs across that volume. If the agency ordered less, our margin nearly disappeared. I opened the staffing plan. It listed me as Executive Program Supervisor. No salary had been included for that role. They expected me to manage the federal contract on top of my existing work. I called Eric into my office. He stood in the doorway. "Why am I listed as Program Supervisor?" "The solicitation required executive oversight." "Did you plan to tell me before or after award?" "You're the most qualified person. That isn't an answer." "We would have discussed responsibilities. You price my labor at 0. Ownership distributions would increase, only if the contract makes money. It will, not at lower volume. The agency gave estimates. Estimates aren't guarantees." He walked to my desk and pointed at the spreadsheet. "This contract would stabilize us." "This spreadsheet says it might. You always do that." "Do what?" "Find the one condition that can go wrong." There are 9 volume levels on this sheet. Only the top 2 produce the margin you promised. Then we renegotiate vendor pricing. "After award?" "Yes, that is not a plan." He straightened. "What do you want?" "I want the truth before I'm required to certify it." "You have the truth." "No, I have the version you were willing to put on a drive after I caught you." His phone rang. He checked the screen. "It's Dad." "Answer it." He stepped into the hallway. At 2:40, my Summit portal showed a new message. The contracting office had responded. The message was short. If I believed the submitted owner authorization was invalid, I needed to provide 3 things before Thursday at 5 in the afternoon. A signed statement describing my decision, the portal record I disputed, and the company document establishing who held authority over federal bids. Until then, the existing submission remained part of the finalist file. I read the message again. The contracting office wasn't asking about my marriage. It wasn't asking why Eric had done it. It wanted the rule and my decision. I opened my locked drawer. The blue operating agreement was exactly where I had left it. I removed the folder and carried it into the conference room. Then I closed the blinds. The federal section began near the back. I found the paragraph I had required when the company was formed. Reserved Federal Bid Consent Clause. It said every federal submission required my bid-specific written approval before the company could be bound or represented as authorized. There was no exception for Eric. No exception for Carl. No exception for a promising contract. I made a copy for review, placed the original in my bag, and locked the empty drawer. When I returned to my office, Eric was waiting beside my desk. He looked at the blue folder. "What are you doing with the operating agreement? I have until Thursday at 5 to decide what happens next." He reached for the folder. I pulled it closer. "I need to see that," he said. "You signed it 3 years ago. I need to see what you're relying on. You know the clause. I know there's language about federal bids. There's language requiring my written approval for each one. We can give them that approval now." "No." He stared at me. "You haven't decided. I've decided I won't ratify a false certification. That doesn't mean we withdraw." The contracting office asked for my decision. "Then tell them you approve the bid now." "I don't. You said you had until Thursday." "I have until Thursday to submit the record. I don't need 4 days to decide whether I signed something." He pulled out the chair across from me. "Listen, we replace the certification with a current one. That cures the problem. It doesn't erase what happened. It keeps the contract alive. The pricing is weak. We can fix the pricing. The deadline isn't for a new bid. We can clarify assumptions. You priced me as free labor. We'll add compensation after award. You can't add costs after award because you forgot I'm a person." His face tightened. "That isn't what happened. It's on your spreadsheet. You're an owner. Owners don't always take salaries for every role. I already have a role. You've done more work for less money before. That was my choice." He leaned forward. "This is our chance to stop worrying every month." "Then why didn't you trust me with it?" "Because every answer with you starts with no. My answer to Maya's delivery problem was yes. That's different. My answer to starting this company was yes. I know. I put my retirement money into it. I know. I hired your parents. They helped us. I agreed to the Walters name. You keep throwing that in my face. I'm reminding you how many times I said yes." He looked toward the closed blinds. "Dad thinks you never respected him. This is not about Carl's feelings. It is to him. That doesn't make his signature mine. He didn't think of it that way. How did he think of it? As paperwork. And you?" Eric didn't answer. I waited. Finally, he said, "I thought we would get through the first round, then bring you in. Bring me into my own company. We needed room to move. Without me. You slow things down. That's what control is for." He shook his head. "There it is again." "What?" "Control. It's an operating agreement, Eric. It's a marriage. Not when you submit federal forms." He stood and walked out. I remained in the conference room with the blue folder. Around 4, Diane emailed the final spotlight draft. It included a photograph of me from my retirement ceremony. I was standing beside Eric in uniform. Diane had cropped the image so he was barely visible. Under it, she had written that Walters Coastal was guided by my 24 years of military leadership and 3 deployments. I had never given her that photograph. Eric had a copy. I replied to both of them. "Do not publish this. I have not approved the photograph or text." Diane called immediately. "You can't be serious. I'm serious. The feature is scheduled for tomorrow. Cancel it. We already told the coordinator yes. You told her yes. This publicity could help the bid. That's why I'm not approving it. You're punishing the company. I'm stopping you from using my service record while you pressure me to ratify an unauthorized submission. Your service record is public. My photograph isn't yours. It's a family picture. Then why did you crop out your son? She went quiet. I said, cancel the feature. You'll have to explain that to Carl. No, you will. I ended the call. At 5:30, Eric came into my office wearing his jacket. Mom canceled the spotlight. Good. She's humiliated. She submitted material without approval. It was a positive article. It was leverage. Nobody is leveraging you. She said it could help the bid. That's normal marketing. She used my retirement photograph. You gave me that picture. I gave it to my husband. What's the difference? I looked at him. He looked away first. That question told me more than the copied signature. To Eric, there was no boundary between what belonged to his wife and what belonged to the company. There was no boundary between the company and his parents. If one of them had access, all of them believed they had permission. I put the agreement in my bag. Are you coming home? I asked. Eventually. Where are you going? To talk to Dad. About what? Whether he's still willing to work here. Did he threaten to leave? He said he can't sell for a company where every conversation might be investigated. Company conversations are company records. You know what he means? Yes. He wants freedom without accountability. Eric opened the office door. If he walks, we lose relationships. If he stays, he follows company rules. You make everything sound simple. Some things are. He left without saying goodbye. I stayed another hour and reviewed the proposal again. I tried to find a version I could approve. I lowered the projected volume. I added compensation for program oversight. I adjusted fuel costs and warehouse rates. The numbers stopped working. At realistic volume, the contract produced almost nothing during the first year. One delayed payment could leave us short on payroll. One vendor increase could turn the margin negative. The offer wasn't impossible. It was fragile. That mattered because the people asking me to accept the risk had hidden the work from me. They would celebrate the revenue. I would be expected to manage every weak assumption after award. At 7:15, I emailed Eric. I will not ratify the submitted certification. I am still reviewing the correct response to the contracting office. He replied 2 minutes later. Do not contact them again until we speak as a family. I read the message twice. Then I replied, this is an ownership decision. Carl and Diane do not have decision authority. He didn't answer. When I arrived home, Carl's sedan was in our driveway. Diane was sitting at the kitchen counter. Carl stood beside the sink. Eric was near the patio door. No one had asked if they could come over. My blue folder was in my bag. Carl pointed to it. So you took the original? Yes. From the company. It belongs in the controlling member's custody. It belongs in the office. It was in my locked drawer. And now, no one else can access it. That is the purpose of a locked drawer. Diane slid a plate toward me. She had brought sandwiches. You haven't eaten. I'm not hungry. You need to keep your strength up. I'm not sick. No one said you were. I put my bag beside my chair but didn't sit. Eric said, tell them what you emailed me. I won't ratify the certification. Diane pressed her fingers against her lips. Carl stepped away from the sink. You're withdrawing? I'm deciding the proper response. There's only one proper response. Correct the signature and move forward. I don't approve the offer. You approved federal growth when we started. I approved pursuing lawful work. This is lawful work. The work may be, the submission wasn't. Diane spoke softly. Think about what people will say. Which people? Our clients, vendors, everyone at the summit. They don't know. They will if you create a public problem. I didn't create it. You can still contain it. How? Sign the correct page, Carl said. I looked at Eric. Is that what you want? He took a breath. Yes. After seeing the numbers? The numbers can be managed. By whom? By us. Who is listed as unpaid program supervisor? He looked at the floor. Carl said, titles can be changed. After award, if necessary. Diane came around the counter. Jennifer, this contract changes everything. People in Tampa will finally take the company seriously. Maya already takes us seriously. This is different. Because it's bigger. Because it proves what Carl and Eric built. I waited. She seemed not to hear her own words. What did I build? I asked. Oh, please don't do this. Answer. You helped. I helped. You know what I mean. I'm starting to. Eric said. She means the sales side. No, I said. She means I'm useful when my ownership qualifies the company. Carl and you built the part she respects. That isn't fair. Then correct her. He looked at his mother. Diane folded her arms. No one said anything. I picked up the plate of sandwiches and placed it back near her purse. You need to leave. Carl stared at me. This is our son's home. It's my home, too. We're trying to prevent a disaster. You came here to pressure me. We came because you won't listen at work. I listened. My answer didn't change. Diane's eyes filled. You are tearing this family apart over paperwork. No, I'm refusing to cover what you did. We were protecting Eric. From me, from losing his chance. I looked at my husband. Did you ask them to come here? He hesitated. Yes, that cost more than the signature. He had brought his parents into our home so 3 people could lean against one answer. I said, they need to leave. Eric stepped toward me. We all need to calm down. I'm calm. You don't look calm. My parents-in-law are in my kitchen demanding my signature. They're my parents, and I'm your wife. I know that. Then choose the correct conversation. Carl picked up his keys. You hear that? She wants you to choose. I want him to stop using our marriage to give you access to my authority. Eric's face hardened. This always comes back to authority with you, because you ignored mine. You're not in the army anymore, I know. Then stop treating everyone like they report to you. I have not mentioned my rank once. You don't have to. It's always there. Diane took her purse. Carl opened the front door. Eric remained near the kitchen. I said, Are you staying? He looked at me for a long time. Then he walked toward the bedroom. I heard the closet open. A few minutes later, he returned with a small suitcase. Diane stood by the open front door. What are you doing? I asked. I need space. Where are you going? With them. Of course, I said. He gripped the suitcase handle. You're choosing a uniform over your family. I didn't answer immediately. My uniform was upstairs, covered and hidden at the back of a closet. The federal certification was downstairs in my bag. This isn't about a uniform, it is to you. No, it's about what you think belongs to you. He walked out. Diane followed him. Carl closed the door behind them. Their vehicles left one after the other. I stood in the kitchen until the ice maker dropped a tray. Then I locked the front door. I had spent the day trying to preserve the company while correcting one false certification. That was no longer enough. Even if I found a way to keep the bid alive, Carl and Diane would still treat my identity as a company resource. Eric would still call that family. I carried the blue folder upstairs. The open closet door faced the bed. Eric had taken 4 shirts, 2 pairs of pants, and his gray travel bag. My garment cover still hung at the back. I closed the closet. Then I sat at the bedroom desk and opened my notebook. At the top of a clean page, I wrote one sentence. They do not get to use me anymore. Under it, I made a list. My signature, my ownership information, my retirement photograph, my rank and service history, the website biography, the summit materials. Then I added every company account where Eric or his parents could change those things without asking me. I didn't call any of them. At 6:30 the next morning, I emailed one instruction to all 3. Effective immediately. No one may publish, submit, alter, or distribute my name, image, signature, military rank, service history, veteran status, or ownership certification without my written approval for that specific use. Existing commercial capability statements may remain in circulation until reviewed. No new version may be issued. I copied my company email and personal email. Eric replied first, "Call me." I didn't. Carl replied next, "You cannot run a business this way." I saved his message. Diane didn't reply. I arrived at the office before 7. The blue folder stayed in my bag. Our website was managed through a basic company account. I had created it when Walters Coastal opened, but Diane had handled updates for the last year. The home page showed Eric beside a truck. Carl appeared in a client meeting. My section used a photograph from a veterans business luncheon. The biography under it said, "I brought military precision, global logistics leadership, and 24 years of distinguished service to the Walters family mission." I had never written that sentence. I changed it. The new biography said, "Jennifer Soto is the controlling member of Walters Coastal Logistics and oversees company compliance, finance, and operational standards. Nothing about deployments, nothing about rank, nothing about family." I removed the luncheon photograph and replaced it with a plain headshot from our insurance file. Then I changed the publishing permissions, so any future edit to my profile required my account. The website updated within seconds. That was the first visible result of the new rule. At 7:40, Diane called. I answered because she still worked for the company. "What did you do to the website?" I corrected my biography. "You removed everything that makes us special. I removed language I didn't approve. I wrote that with Eric. That doesn't make it mine. The military wording helps people trust us. Then the company needs to earn trust through its work." She made a frustrated sound. "You're making the business look ordinary. We are an ordinary small business. We are finalists for a major federal contract. Not because of a website paragraph. You don't know that." "Yes, I do." She lowered her voice. "Carl is devastated. Is this an events question?" "What?" "You called my office before 8. Do you need a decision about an event? I'm calling as your mother-in-law. Then call after work." I ended the call. A few minutes later, the website login showed an attempted edit from Diane's account. The system denied it and sent me a notice. My instruction had worked. It also showed me she had tried to ignore it within an hour. At 8:30, Eric entered the office carrying the same travel bag he had taken from home. He placed it beside his desk. He didn't look at me. "Where did you stay?" I asked. "My parents' house." I nodded. That was the only personal question I allowed myself. He came into my office with a printed copy of my email. "You can't prohibit the company from using your ownership information. I prohibited unauthorized use. Every capability statement identifies the controlling owner. I allowed existing commercial statements to remain. What about the summit? Send me each use. We don't have time for individual approvals. Then don't use the material." He placed the email on my desk. "Mom says you locked her out of the website, only from my profile. She handles marketing. She tried to change it back. She was fixing what you removed. That's why I changed the permissions." He looked at the new biography on my screen. "You made yourself sound like an auditor. That's my work. You used to be proud of your service. I still am. Then why hide it? I'm not hiding it. I'm controlling where it appears." He laughed without humor. "You're going to wear the uniform next week, but you won't let the company say you served. I decide when I wear it. I decide when the company uses it. This is punishment. This is a boundary." He looked tired. His shirt was wrinkled near the collar. "Have you sent anything else to the contracting office?" "Not yet, so there's still time." "Yes." "For what?" "To submit an accurate response." He studied my face. "You've already decided to withdraw. I decided I won't ratify. That's the same outcome. Then you should have considered that before submitting." He pulled out the chair and sat. "If we lose this, Dad may leave. That's his choice. Mom will go with him. She's an events director, not a hostage. They won't work for you after this. They work for Walters Coastal. You are Walters Coastal when it suits you. I'm the controlling member every day, and I'm your husband. You left our home because you threw my parents out. They came to pressure me. They came to talk. 3 people were waiting in my kitchen. They were scared. So was I." That stopped him. I hadn't planned to say it. He looked down at his hands. For one moment, I thought he might understand. Then he said, "You should be scared of losing this contract." I turned back to my computer. "The operations meeting is at 2. He stood. "Is that all?" "For now." He picked up his travel bag and carried it into his office. At 9:15, I received another call from Maya. Carl contacted purchasing again, she said. What did he say? He said your email about the delivery schedule was temporary. It isn't. He also said there's a leadership disagreement. I closed my office door. Did he describe it? He said one owner was reacting emotionally to federal paperwork. I wrote down the time. Thank you for telling me. What should we do? Keep your current schedule. Do not accept a rate or service change unless it comes from me and Eric together. Is Carl still our sales contact? Not for contract changes. That decision was visible too. I sent Carl a written instruction that he could continue routine sales conversations but could not promise pricing, scheduling, capacity, or contract changes without approval. He walked into my office 20 minutes later. You are destroying my credibility. You called Maya after I confirmed her schedule. I was correcting your interference. It's an existing client account. It's my account. It belongs to Walters Coastal. He pointed at me. You have never closed a customer like that. I kept her last week when we sent the wrong truck. That was operations. That was trust. He dropped his hand. If you send that withdrawal, every client will hear about it. The bid is confidential. People talk. Who did you tell? He looked toward Eric's office. Who did you tell, Carl? Vendors know we're expecting growth. You told Maya it was VA work. She's a trusted client. You used an unawarded federal contract to negotiate commercial terms. I used momentum. You used something we didn't have. His face reddened. I won't be treated like this. Then follow the instruction. I built the reputation you're about to ruin. You told people we had work before we had it. That is sales. No. That is why your commitments now require review. He left my office and slammed his door. At 11, I opened the operating agreement and read every section touching federal work. The reserved federal bid consent clause was direct. My approval had to be written. It had to identify the specific bid. It had to exist before submission. There was nothing to interpret. The signature page showed mine and Eric's original signatures. Carl and Diane weren't parties to the agreement. I scanned the federal section and the signature page. Then I placed the original back in the blue folder. The contracting office had requested a signed statement, the disputed portal record, and the document establishing authority. I prepared all three. The statement was 1 page. I identified myself as the controlling member. I said I had not reviewed or approved the offer before submission. I said the signature image on the certification had been used without my knowledge. I said I would not ratify that certification. Then I withdrew owner authorization for the bid. I did not write about Carl insulting me. I did not write that Eric had left home. I did not mention Diane's photograph request. None of that determined whether the bid was authorized. I attached the portal record showing the submitted signature. I attached the operating agreement section requiring my bid-specific consent. I printed the statement. The signature line at the bottom was empty. I carried it to the conference room and sat alone. For 3 years, I had signed documents that kept Walters Coastal moving. Insurance renewals, banking resolutions, vendor approvals, client agreements. This signature would stop something. I read the statement once more. Then I signed my name by hand. At 1:15, I uploaded the 3 files through the agency portal. A confirmation box asked whether I intended to withdraw authorization for the current offer. I selected yes. The next box warned that withdrawal could affect eligibility and award status. I selected continue. The system recorded the submission. For several minutes, nothing changed. Then the finalist page refreshed. A yellow notice appeared beside Walters Coastal's name. Authorization review pending. Award action on hold. The offer hadn't been publicly removed. The contracting office still had to review what I sent, but no award could move forward while my authority was being examined. At 1:23, automatic notices went to every registered company representative. Eric came out of his office holding his phone. What did you submit? The documents they requested. You withdrew. Yes. Carl's door opened. He had received the same message. You had no right, he said. I had the only right that mattered for this bid. Eric stepped closer to my desk. You didn't even wait until Thursday. The additional time would not change my decision. We could have revised the pricing. The pricing wasn't the deciding issue. Then what was? You used me. His face changed. You just put the expected award on hold. I withdrew authorization. Call them back. No. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. It wasn't. Carl was already calling someone in the hallway. Eric lowered his voice. Dad's going to contact the summit team. The summit team cannot authorize the bid. He'll tell them you're having some kind of episode. Then he'll create another company record. You think records protect you from everything? No. They show what people chose to do. He stared at the portal notice on my screen. Then he photographed it with his phone. That was the target I had given them. My withdrawal was no longer an argument they could reshape at dinner. It had a timestamp, attachments, and a visible effect. Eric sent the photograph to someone. A second later, Carl's phone made a sound. Then Diane called the office. Eric answered on speaker without asking me. Her voice filled the room. Tell me she didn't actually stop the award. I stopped the authorization, I said. Diane went silent. Then Carl spoke from the hallway. She stopped the award. The award was already on hold, I said. The contracting office is reviewing authority. Eric took the phone off speaker. Mom, I'll call you back. He ended the call. Carl walked into my office. You need to reverse this before anyone outside the agency sees it. I'm not reversing it. You've made your point. This wasn't a point. Eric held up his phone. The portal allows a management response. I looked at him. A response to what? Your withdrawal. The controlling member withdrew authorization. I own 49%. I'm also the chief operating officer. Neither gives you federal bid consent. The contracting office can decide that. They have the operating agreement. They have one section you selected. I sent the signature page too. Carl stepped between us. Eric, send the response. I said, do not submit a false statement. Eric looked at his father, then back at me. I'm going to tell them there is a management dispute. There isn't a dispute about what the agreement says. There is a dispute about why you're doing this. My reason doesn't change the clause. It matters if you're using company authority to retaliate against your husband. I felt my face grow warm. Is that what you believe? I believe you're angry. I was angry after you copied my signature. I withdrew because the bid lacked consent. You threw me out of our home. You packed a bag. Because you made it impossible to stay. Carl nodded as if Eric had just proved something. I turned to him. Leave my office. I work here. Then go to your desk. He gave me a long look before walking out. Eric remained. You should think carefully before you put our marriage into a federal record, I said. You already did. No. I described my decision as the controlling owner. I didn't mention our marriage. They need to know this is personal. It became personal when you gave my authority to your parents. He opened the management response on his phone. I could see the blank form. Eric. He didn't look up. If you submit that, you expose the entire company to more scrutiny. You already exposed us. I submitted the governing document, and I'm submitting context. He walked back into his office and closed the door. At 2:10, the portal status changed. The yellow hold notice remained. A second notice appeared under it. Conflicting management statements received. Company credentials under review. My editing access disappeared. So did Eric's. I could still view the record, but neither of us could change it. His response was attached to the file. He wrote that Walters Coastal had an internal ownership disagreement. He said I had supported federal growth for years and had withdrawn only after a personal conflict. He asked the contracting office to accept a corrected authorization signed by both owners. There was no corrected authorization attached. I printed the response. Then I walked into his office and placed it on his desk. You told them I acted because of a personal conflict. I told the truth. You left out the copied signature. They already have your statement. You also asked them to accept an authorization I haven't signed. I asked for a path forward. There isn't one without my consent. Then give it. No. He closed his laptop. I can't work like this. You created this. Every answer is the same with you, because you keep asking for the same thing. He opened his desk drawer and removed his company security token. It was a small black device we used for the dispatch system and vendor payment approvals. He placed it in his pocket. What are you doing? Taking leave. For how long? Until this is resolved. We have active shipments. You can handle them. I don't have the current master credential. You have an owner account. My access is for finance and oversight. You changed the operations password last month. He picked up his laptop. Call support. Give me the token. It's assigned to me. It belongs to the company. So does the laptop. I may need both if the contracting office contacts me. You're taking leave. I'm not resigning. Then transfer operations before you leave. He lifted his travel bag. You wanted control. This isn't control. It's abandonment. His hand tightened around the handle. Reverse the withdrawal and I'll be back tomorrow. There it was. Not shouted. Not softened. A trade. I stepped away from the doorway. Send me the current dispatch schedule. It's in the system. I can't enter the system. Then call support. He walked past me. Carl followed him to the front door. Diane's car was already waiting downstairs. Before Eric left, he turned. 5 o'clock Thursday. After that, you own what happens. I already own my decision. He left with the token and laptop. Carl remained near the door. If Eric is out, I'm out. You have client calls scheduled. Not anymore. You're being paid, not to watch you destroy my work. Send me every open sales item before you leave. Find them yourself. He took his briefcase and left. By 3, Diane emailed that she would not perform further event work until the family issue was resolved. All 3 stopped working within 2 hours of my withdrawal. I called dispatch support. The account recovery process required identity verification and a callback to the company's registered owner number. That number was mine. The technician restored my access after 40 minutes. Then he issued a replacement security token for overnight delivery. Until it arrived, every vendor payment required a manual callback. I opened the dispatch board. 4 deliveries were scheduled for Wednesday. 2 had assigned carriers. 2 did not. Eric had started the bookings but hadn't finished them. I called our approved carriers myself. The first had no available trucks. The second could take 1 delivery but wanted a rush fee. The third agreed to cover both if I moved the pickup windows by 30 minutes. I called the clients and confirmed the changes. By 5:30, every Wednesday load had a carrier. That practical result didn't restore what Eric had taken. It only proved the company could move for 1 more day. At 6, Maya forwarded another email from Carl. He had written to 3 commercial clients from his personal account. He said Walters Coastal was experiencing an unexpected ownership conflict that might affect future capacity. He offered to help clients identify other providers if necessary. Maya added 1 sentence above the forwarded message. I'm staying, but you should know this went out. I called the other 2 clients. 1 agreed to keep the existing schedule while I reviewed the situation. The hotel group paused its renewal. Their purchasing manager didn't argue. She simply said they couldn't sign a 12-month agreement while company leadership was publicly divided. That renewal represented almost 9% of our expected commercial revenue for the next year. The loss wasn't final, but the signature stopped. Carl had warned that clients would hear about the dispute. Then he made sure they did. I documented each call. At 7, I went home. Eric's side of the closet looked unfinished. He had taken more clothes during the day. His dress shoes were gone. His toiletries were gone from the bathroom. On the kitchen counter, he had left his wedding ring. I stood over it without touching it. Then I put my bag down and returned to the office. The new security token arrived Wednesday morning. I spent the day handling operations and answering client questions. Diane did not come in. Carl did not come in. Eric responded only to messages about the federal review. He ignored requests for the dispatch notes and vendor payment calendar. At noon, the contracting office requested a complete copy of the operating agreement, not only the federal section. It also requested confirmation that no amendment changed the consent clause. Eric received the same request. 10 minutes later, He emailed me. Do not send the full agreement until we discuss this. I sent the complete agreement through the portal. There were no amendments. The agency acknowledged receipt. Editing access remained locked. That afternoon, the updated summit program arrived. Sandra Fuentes, the Department of Veterans Affairs Inspector General, was listed as the keynote speaker for the awards reception. I knew the name. Several years before I retired, Sandra had participated in a joint review involving military medical supply continuity. I had led one part of the Army logistics team. She read our report before the meeting and asked questions that made it clear she had read every page. She didn't flatter anyone. She didn't embarrass anyone either. At the end, she had told me, "Your corrective plan is specific. Keep it that way." We had not spoken since. I didn't contact her. She was a keynote speaker, not a person I could call to solve a family problem. The contracting office had the agreement. The record had to stand on that. Thursday morning, the hotel group formally declined to renew before the summit. The email was polite. They said they needed stability. I printed it and placed it with the financial reports. Carl's company email remained active because he had not resigned. He still refused to work. At 10, he sent one message. "If you reverse course today, I will contact every client and repair this." I replied, "You may correct the inaccurate statements you made regardless of the federal bid." He didn't answer. At 1, Eric called. I was alone in the conference room reviewing Friday's deliveries. "Have you changed your mind?" he asked. "No. You lost the hotel renewal." "I know. Dad can get it back. He should try. He won't while you're treating him like the enemy. He contacted our clients after walking out because he wanted them prepared. For what? For the company collapsing. The company is still operating. For now." I looked at the dispatch board. "What do you want, Eric?" "Withdraw your withdrawal." "No." "Sign a corrected certification." "No." "Then at least ask the agency to delay past the summit. The deadline is today. They can extend it." "I won't ask." He was quiet, then he said, "I need to know if there's anything left to come home to." I looked through the conference room glass at his dark office. "That depends on whether you understand what you did. I understand that I made a bad decision. You submitted my signature. To keep the bid moving. You keep adding the reason as if it changes the act. I'm trying to save our company. You left it without dispatch access. You replaced the token. That doesn't erase the choice." He breathed slowly. "If you let the deadline pass, Dad and Mom are done. That is their decision. And us? I won't trade my authorization for my husband. You make it sound ugly. It is ugly. I'm asking you to choose your family." "No." "You're asking me to prove I belong by accepting what you did." He didn't answer. I said, "The answer is still no." He ended the call. At 4:45, the portal displayed a final reminder. Owner certification would close at 5. The management response was still under review. My withdrawal remained active. At 4:52, Eric sent a message. "Last chance." I set the phone face down. At 4:59, I refreshed the portal. Nothing had changed. At 5, the certification window closed. The offer remained on hold. My withdrawal remained in the record, and I accepted that Walters Coastal might lose the contract. The clients Carl had frightened, and the marriage Eric had tried to place on the other side of my signature. The next morning, the portal scheduled a verification call for 10. The contracting officer invited both owners. No one else was included. Eric joined from his parents' house. I could tell by the clock behind him. Diane had owned that clock for years. It chimed 5 minutes before the hour because Carl had never fixed it properly. The contracting officer appeared on screen exactly at 10. She didn't ask about our marriage. She asked me to show identification. Then she asked Eric. She confirmed our ownership percentages. "Ms. Soto, did you sign the owner certification submitted last Friday?" "No." "Did you authorize anyone to apply your signature?" "No." "Did you provide written approval for this specific offer before submission?" "No." She turned to Eric. "Mr. Walters, did you upload the certification?" "Yes." "Did you personally witness Ms. Soto approve it?" "No." Who placed the signature image on the document? Eric looked away from the camera. My father prepared that section. Was your father authorized under the operating agreement to approve a federal bid? We believed I had operating authority. That wasn't my question. No. The contracting officer made a note. Eric leaned toward his camera. The company supports the bid. I own 49% and serve as Chief Operating Officer. I understand your position. This is a personal disagreement that happened after the submission. She looked at him. The timing of the disagreement does not determine who held consent authority before submission. He stopped talking. She asked me to hold the original agreement in front of the camera. I showed the cover, the signature page, and the page containing the reserved federal bid consent clause. Has this agreement been amended? She asked. No. Mr. Walters? No. Do you dispute that this is the governing agreement? He took several seconds. No. Do you dispute that the clause reserves bid-specific federal consent to Ms. Soto? I dispute how she's using it. That is a different issue. There was no satisfaction in the officer's voice. She was confirming a rule. She asked me one final question. Does your withdrawal remain your decision as controlling member? Yes. Eric spoke over her. Can we have time to submit a revised ownership authorization? The officer answered him. Only the member holding consent authority can provide that authorization. So if she refuses, the bid is dead. The offer becomes ineligible without valid owner consent. Final status remains under review. When will that review finish? Before the awards reception. He stared at the screen. The officer continued. Because the submitted signature is disputed, the procurement integrity record has been referred for review. The Inspector General's office has received the operating agreement and portal history. I thought of Sandra's name in the program. I said nothing. Eric asked, Are you accusing me of a crime? I am notifying you of the review process. I have not made a finding. Can we withdraw the disputed page and move on? The offer is a complete submission. The certification cannot be separated from the eligibility review. He leaned back. The officer asked whether Carl or Diane had participated in preparing the offer. Eric said, My father worked on sales material. My mother managed scheduling. I said, Carl prepared the certification section, according to Eric. Eric looked at me through the screen. The officer wrote that down. Both should remain available during the summit in case the review team has questions. Available where? Eric asked. Registered company representatives will receive instructions if an interview is required. No threat, no spectacle, just a process created by what they had submitted. Before ending the call, the officer confirmed one thing in plain language. The consent clause controlled. My withdrawal had been timely. That removed the last uncertainty. No management title, family relationship, or 49% interest could replace the approval required from me. It didn't feel like winning. It felt like hearing a door lock after I had chosen which side to stand on. Eric remained on the call after the contracting officer left. His face filled the screen. You brought Dad into an Inspector General review. Carl prepared the certification. You didn't have to say that, she asked. You could have said the company prepared it. That would have hidden the answer. He's 69 years old. He's the sales director. He thought he was helping me. That doesn't change what he did. He could lose every relationship he has. I'm not contacting his relationships. You won't have to. People at the summit will see. I didn't schedule the review. You knew what would happen when you sent the agreement. I knew the contracting office would examine the bid. Same thing. No. He looked exhausted. I asked, Do you understand now that the clause applies? I understand they accepted your interpretation. It isn't an interpretation. There you go. Where? Talking like everyone else is stupid. I didn't say you were stupid. You never have to. I sat back. I believed you. He looked at me. When you said you handled operations, I believed you. When you said the federal entry was only a lead, I almost believed that too. That wasn't because I thought you were stupid. Then why couldn't you trust me to fix this? because your fix required my false approval." His face hardened again. "If you attend that reception, this becomes public. The final status will be announced whether I attend or not. Mom says people already know something is wrong. Carl contacted clients. That isn't what I mean." The summit team removed our spotlight. Our booth schedule changed. The award hold is visible to the committee. I didn't publish it, but you'll stand there and let them humiliate us. I am not announcing the decision. You know what your presence will do. What? It will make it look like you chose their side. The contracting office isn't a side. Against your husband, it is. I looked at the clock behind him. Are you still coming to the summit? We paid for it. That wasn't my question. Dad and Mom are coming, and you? Yes. Then I'll see you there. His voice dropped. If you walk into that reception wearing the uniform after all this, don't expect me to stand beside you. You haven't stood beside me yet. He ended the call. At noon, Carl sent an email to the entire company client list. The subject line said, "Leadership Update." He wrote that recent internal decisions had placed a major growth opportunity and some commercial relationships at risk. He said he remained committed to clients but was temporarily unable to speak for current ownership. The wording made it sound as if he had been silenced for warning people. He copied me, Eric, and Diane. For several minutes, I considered replying to everyone. I had the portal record. I had the copied signature. I had Carl's message to Maya. I could attach all three and explain exactly why his authority had been limited. That would have been easy. It also would have pushed a federal certification dispute into the inboxes of commercial clients who had nothing to do with it. Carl had used them as pressure. I wasn't going to use them back. I replied only to him, Eric, and Diane. Do not send further company-wide statements without approval. Clients with operational questions will receive direct answers. Then I called the clients with active shipments. I confirmed schedules and gave them one contact number. Mine. Maya answered on the second ring. I saw Carl's email. I know. Do you want me to tell the others what happened? No. They're going to assume you caused the problem. They can ask me about their accounts. The federal matter stays in its process. She was quiet. Then she said, Our Tuesday delivery is still confirmed? Yes, that's what I needed. It wasn't much, but it kept the work separate from the fight. By Friday afternoon, Carl's company email access was limited to existing client threads. I did not terminate him. I preserved the records and removed his ability to send messages to the full client list. Diane still had access to the event calendar. She used it to remove my name from the company dinner reservation for Monday night. The summit coordinator called me 10 minutes later. Miss Soto, your company requested an attendee change. What change? They removed you from the private finalist dinner. Who made the request? Diane Walters. Am I still registered for the summit and awards reception? Yes. Your individual registration is separate. Leave it that way. Would you like me to remove Mrs. Walters's event permissions? I thought about it. I could have done that. I could have removed Carl and Diane from every company event and forced them to watch the summit from outside. No, I said. Keep all registered attendees. Only my registration stays under my control. The coordinator confirmed it. That was the easier, cruel choice I refused. They had excluded me. I didn't need to copy them. Monday morning, I worked from South Franklin Street alone. Eric's office remained locked. Carl's desk was empty. Diane's event samples were stacked in the conference room. The replacement backdrop arrived after lunch. It still said a proud Walters family company. My name remained at the bottom. I could have ordered a corrected backdrop, but there wasn't time. I placed it in storage and packed a plain blue tablecloth instead. At 4, Eric came into the office for the first time since leaving. He carried his company laptop. For a second, I thought he had come to return it. Instead, he connected it to the printer. What are you printing? I asked. Summit materials. You're still on leave. I'm attending as Chief Operating Officer. Are you returning to work? Not under the current conditions. Then don't use company equipment for private work. This is company work. He collected the pages. "Will you be at the breakfast tomorrow?" he asked. "Yes, in uniform." "Yes, why?" "Because it is appropriate for the event." "You know what Mom thinks?" "I do. You could wear a suit and lower the temperature." "I am not responsible for the temperature created by my clothes. It will look deliberate." "It is deliberate." He shook his head. "You want people to see the contrast. I want to attend the event as myself. Lieutenant Colonel Soto." "Yes." He held the printed pages against his chest. "What happens after the reception?" "That depends on what you do next. I mean, with us." "So do I." He left without returning the laptop. At home, I opened the garment cover. The uniform smelled faintly of cedar. I checked every button and seam. I polished my shoes at the kitchen table. Then I compared the ribbons and badges with the retirement photograph to make sure nothing had shifted. I didn't add anything. I didn't need to. The next morning, I drove downtown before traffic thickened. The convention center rose above the water at the end of the street. Delivery trucks were already lined along the service entrance. I parked, carried my registration confirmation, and walked inside in my Army service uniform. The elevator opened onto the conference level. Diane saw me approaching the registration tables. I didn't change. I checked in under my own registration and walked to the Veterans Leadership Breakfast alone. Most people wore business clothes. A few retired service members wore uniforms. No one stared. No one asked why I was there. At my table, we discussed delivery failures during hurricane season. A warehouse manager described trucks arriving after facilities had closed. Another owner said his dispatch team relied on outdated contact lists. I listened until he finished. Then I said, "The list isn't the real problem. Someone has to own the update. If everyone can change it, nobody maintains it." The warehouse manager nodded. "What do you use?" he asked. "One primary contact, one alternate, and a scheduled verification before storm season. If a facility changes hours, the person receiving that notice confirms the update in writing." He wrote it down. That was all. No speech about leadership. No one asked about my deployments. I answered a work question because I knew the work. After breakfast, I went to the Walters Coastal booth. Diane had used the custom navy tablecloth. The backdrop behind her was not the one I placed in storage. She had printed another. It showed Eric beside the truck, Carl with a client, and my uniform photograph on the far right. Under the picture were the words, "Military leadership behind the Walters family mission." I stopped in front of it. Diane followed my eyes. The printer rushed it for us. "I told you not to use that photograph. We needed a complete booth. You had a complete booth. You put it in storage because the wording was inaccurate. This one includes you. It uses me." A man approaching the booth slowed when he heard us. Diane smiled at him. "Good morning. Welcome to Walters Coastal." He accepted a brochure and moved on. I lowered my voice. "Take the photograph down. The backdrop is one piece. Then take the backdrop down. We paid for this." "You paid after receiving my written instruction?" She didn't answer. "Who approved the new order?" "Carl. Take it down." Her smile disappeared. "No." Carl walked over carrying 2 bottles of water. "What's happening?" "She wants the backdrop removed." He looked at me. "You don't control every inch of this company. I control the use of my photograph. It was already public. At my retirement ceremony. You're in uniform right now. That doesn't make every photograph yours." Carl set the bottles on the table. "We have buyers coming." "Then put up the plain company sign. We're not hiding who we are because you're having second thoughts about your own history. This isn't about my history. Everything is with you now." Eric arrived before I answered. He wore a dark suit and carried his company laptop. He looked from me to the backdrop. "You printed another one?" Diane said, "We needed something." "She used the retirement photograph again," I said. Eric rubbed his jaw. "Mom, take it down." Diane stared at him. "After what I paid?" "Yes." Carl turned on his son. "You're giving in now? I'm trying to get through the day." He stepped behind the booth and released the backdrop from its stand. Diane moved away as if she couldn't watch. They replaced it with the plain foam board from the original order. That was the first time Eric enforced one of my boundaries in front of his parents. He didn't look at me afterward. Carl spent the morning telling visitors that Walters Coastal expected a major expansion. I heard him twice. The first time, he said, "We're in the final stage for federal work." The second time, he said, "There was a paperwork delay, but management is handling it." He believed his response might still replace my withdrawal, or he wanted everyone else to believe it. Near noon, one of our trucking vendors stopped at the booth. "Should we keep that capacity open?" he asked Eric. Eric glanced at me. I answered, "Not beyond the terms in your letter." The vendor looked between us. "So no award yet. No award," I said. Carl cut in. "The review is ongoing." The vendor nodded slowly. "Call me when it's official." He left without committing anything further. Carl leaned toward me. "You didn't need to do that." He asked a direct question. "You could have said the review was ongoing. The capacity costs him money. So does losing it cost us? We don't own work that hasn't been awarded." He looked around the exhibit hall. "You want everyone to know we're weak. I want them to know what is true." By late afternoon, the booth traffic slowed. Attendees moved toward workshops and hotel rooms before the reception. Diane packed the brochures. She held up one with my retirement photograph. "Are these forbidden too?" "Yes. We printed 500. Destroy them. That's company money. You spent it after I withheld approval. I ordered them before your email. Then why didn't I see them Monday?" "They were in my car." I took one brochure and checked the print code near the fold. The order date was Wednesday morning, after my written instruction. Diane watched me read it. "You were changing everything," she said. "We needed continuity. You ignored a direct company instruction. I protected our presentation. You will not order new materials. You can't expect me to keep working with my hands tied. You said you stopped event work. I came because Carl needed me. Then you came as an attendee, not events director." She placed the brochures into a box. "I won't be spoken to this way by my daughter-in-law. I am speaking to the events director who used my photograph." She walked away carrying the box. Eric had heard the conversation. He said, "She should have listened." "Yes." "But you could have waited until after the reception." "No." He looked at the plain booth sign. "Do you know what people are saying?" "I've been here all day. They think we're falling apart. We are. That doesn't bother you?" "It bothers me that you think the appearance is the main problem." He closed the laptop. "The contracting office hasn't posted a final decision." "No. So the bid could survive. Not without my authorization. They may accept a joint correction. I won't sign one." He slipped the laptop into its case. "Then why did you come?" "Because this is my company too." The reception began at 6. Round tables filled the ballroom. A low stage stood at the front with 2 lecterns and a screen showing the Supplier Summit logo. Carl and Diane sat with Eric near the center. My name wasn't on their table card. I found my assigned seat near the side of the room with other veteran business owners. Diane saw where I sat. She whispered something to Carl. Before dinner, Sandra Fuentes delivered the keynote. She spoke about supplier responsibility, accurate records, and the cost of promises made before capacity existed. Her tone was direct. She didn't mention Walters Coastal. I watched her the same way I had years earlier. She still read from a small card, then set it aside whenever she wanted to make a precise point. After the keynote, the contracting officer approached the other lectern. She recognized several suppliers and announced 2 program awards. Then the screen changed to the logistics finalist list. Walters Coastal appeared beside 3 other companies. Carl sat straighter. Diane placed both hands on the table. Eric looked toward me. The contracting officer read the first company's status, then the second. When she reached Walters Coastal, Carl whispered, "Here we go." The contracting officer looked down at her notes. "Walters Coastal Logistics has been removed from consideration." No one moved at their table. She continued, "The offer did not have valid authorization from its controlling owner. That owner submitted a timely withdrawal before final certification. The screen changed. Walters Coastal's name disappeared from the finalist list. That was the entire mechanism. The operating agreement required my bid-specific consent. I had withdrawn before the deadline. Without that consent, the offer was ineligible. No hidden account, no second owner, no person rescuing me. The contract was gone because the company had entered it using authority it did not have. Carl stood. This is under dispute. Several people turned toward him. The contracting officer remained at the lectern. The review is complete, sir. Eric reached for his father's arm. Carl pulled away. The chief operating officer filed a management response. That response did not establish owner consent. She supported the company pursuing federal work. I stood. I didn't walk toward the stage. I stayed beside my chair. Carl pointed toward me. She withdrew because of a family argument. The ballroom became very quiet. I said, "My withdrawal stands." 4 words. Nothing else was needed. Carl looked around as if someone would support him. Diane stared at my uniform. Her face had lost all color. Sandra had remained near the stage after her keynote. She stepped toward the second lectern, Lieutenant Colonel Soto. Hearing my rank in that room felt different from seeing it on company material. I turned toward her. She looked at me carefully. We met during a joint medical supply review. Yes, ma'am. You wrote the corrective plan. I led the team that wrote it. She nodded once. I remember. She did not praise me. She did not salute. She recognized work she'd already seen. Then she faced the room. The documents reviewed by the Inspector General's office confirm that Lieutenant Colonel Soto is the lawful managing member holding federal bid consent authority for Walters Coastal Logistics. Carl remained standing. Sandra looked directly at him. Mr. Carl Walters, the certification record identifies you as the person who prepared the disputed owner section. Please remain after the reception for a procurement integrity interview. Diane reached for his hand. Sandra turned toward her. Mrs. Diane Walters, the submission schedule and supporting communications identify your participation in the preparation process. Please remain as well. Diane whispered. Are we being arrested? No, Sandra said. You are being asked to remain for a formal interview. Her voice didn't change. Eric stood beside his parents. What about me? You will receive separate instructions regarding your uploaded certification and management response. Sandra stepped away from the lectern. The contracting officer continued the program. There was no applause for what happened. I was grateful for that. People returned slowly to their meals. A few glanced toward me. Most looked away when I noticed. Carl sat down. Diane kept her hands in her lap. Eric crossed the ballroom and stopped beside my table. You knew they would do this publicly. I knew they would announce the finalist decision. You let us sit there. You knew the withdrawal remained active. I thought the management response mattered. It did. It became part of the review. His eyes moved to my uniform. Are you happy now? No, you got what you wanted. I wanted you not to use my signature. He looked back at his parents. 2 staff members were waiting near the ballroom doors. They weren't guards. They held folders and attendee badges. Carl and Diane walked toward them when the program ended. Sandra spoke briefly with the contracting officer. Then she came to my table. Lieutenant Colonel, the decision is complete. Your company will receive the written notice tomorrow. I understand. The integrity review is separate. I understand that too. She looked at Eric, then at me. What happens inside the company is your responsibility. Yes, ma'am. That was all she said. Carl and Diane were escorted to a small conference room beside the ballroom. The staff members entered with them. Eric stayed outside the door, holding the company laptop against his chest. I didn't wait outside with him. I collected my coat and walked toward the elevators. Eric followed. Are you leaving? Yes. What about Mom and Dad? They were asked to remain. You can wait. Can you at least tell them what to expect? No. You spoke with Sandra. She told me the review is separate. That's it? That's it. He looked back toward the conference room. Dad is terrified. He should answer the questions honestly. You sound cold. I'm tired. The elevator arrived. Eric held the door. Where are you going? Home. Our home? Yes. He released the door. I rode down alone. The convention center lobby was nearly empty. Staff members were collecting signs and folding table covers. I walked to the parking garage in my uniform without hiding my face. No one followed me. At home, I took off the jacket first. I hung it over the back of a chair while I removed my shoes. My phone showed 9 missed messages. 3 were from clients. 2 were from vendors. 1 was from Diane. The others were from Eric. I answered the operational messages first. The clients had seen Carl's leadership email. After the public removal, they wanted written proof of who could sign future agreements. I couldn't blame them. I told each one I would provide a clear authority notice the next morning. One vendor asked whether the capacity letters remained active. I said no. The federal work had not been awarded, so no reserved capacity was needed. That released them from waiting on us. It also ended any quiet hope that the offer might somehow return. Diane's message said, "Please call when you are ready to hear our side." I didn't reply. Eric's last message said the interviews were finished. Carl and Diane had been told not to discuss the questions with other witnesses. They would receive follow-up instructions. I placed the phone on the counter. The next morning, the written removal arrived through the portal. Walters Coastal was ineligible because the offer lacked valid controlling owner authorization. The decision did not cancel the separate review of the disputed certification. I saved the notice. Then I sent clients a 1-page company authority statement. Until further notice, I would sign new client agreements, pricing changes, and ownership certifications. Eric remained chief operating officer, but was on leave. Carl could not make sales commitments. Diane could not approve events or marketing. 2 clients accepted that. One asked for a complete list of authorized signers. Another requested copies of the operating agreement section that defined authority. The hotel group did not return. By noon, the expected award had disappeared from every company projection. I removed the proposed federal staffing plan and returned the commercial schedule to its earlier capacity. The numbers were smaller. They were also real. Carl and Diane arrived at the office shortly after 2. Diane carried the company event binder. Carl carried nothing. I met them in the conference room. The plain blue tablecloth from the summit was folded on a chair. Carl looked at it, then at me. "You could have waited until the interview ended before leaving. I wasn't part of the interview. You caused it. The certification caused it." Diane touched his arm. "We didn't come to argue." I waited. She placed the event binder on the table. "I'm sorry I used your photograph after you told me not to. Thank you for saying that." She looked relieved too quickly. I continued. "That doesn't restore your access." Her expression fell. I returned the binder. "I also need the event passwords, company card, storage key, and any copies of my photographs. I don't have copies. You had the retirement photograph. Eric sent it to me. Delete it from your phone and computer. That feels extreme. It is my condition." She looked at Carl. He sat with both hands on his knees. "I'm sorry the signature was used without your approval," he said. "Who copied it?" He looked at the table. "I did." That was the first time he admitted it directly. "Where did you get it?" "Eric's insurance file." "Why didn't you ask me?" "Because we were against a deadline. You had 3 months. We didn't know we were competitive until the end. You knew the clause existed. I knew you liked paperwork." "That isn't what I asked." He rubbed his thumb against his palm. "Yes. I knew there was a consent section, and you submitted anyway." I prepared the page. Eric submitted it. "Why?" "Because I thought you would approve once you saw the result. The result being finalist status. Yes, you wanted success to make refusal harder." He didn't answer. Diane said, "We all thought you would be proud. I was supposed to be proud that you got around me." "No, that is what happened." Carl leaned forward. I said I was sorry. "You said you're sorry the signature was used. You haven't said you were wrong to use it." His jaw tightened. "I was trying to save the company. The company was not yours to save that way. There. That's what this has always been about. You want everyone reminded that you own more. This is about what you did with that ownership. We lost the largest opportunity we've ever had because it was unauthorized, because you refused to fix it." Diane whispered, "Carl?" He stood. "I apologized, and I heard you. What else do you want?" "Accountability." He picked up his keys. "You got your public accountability. That interview was not for me." He walked out. Diane remained seated. "I really am sorry," she said. "Then respect what comes next." "What comes next?" "You and Carl remain outside the business until the federal review is complete." Her mouth opened. "You're suspending us?" "Yes, we're family. You are also employees connected to an active review. What will people think? I'm not managing that anymore." She looked toward the door. "Can we still come to dinner?" "Not now." Her eyes filled. "I don't know how to fix this. You start by returning everything and not asking me to make you comfortable." She nodded. Before leaving, she wrote the event passwords on a sheet of paper. She placed her company card and storage key beside them. Then she deleted my retirement photograph while I watched. It was a small action. It did not make us close again. At 5, Eric came into the office. He carried the company laptop, security token, office key, and a folder of operations notes. He placed them on my desk one at a time. "The current dispatch password is inside the folder," he said. "Thank you. I transferred the vendor payment approvals back to your account. I saw." He remained standing. "Dad told me what happened." "Which part?" "That you suspended them. Until the review concludes. He says he won't come back. That is his choice. Mom says she returned everything." "She did." Eric looked at the empty office across the hall. "What about me? You submitted the certification?" "I know. You took company credentials while active shipments were open." "I know. You filed a management response calling my decision personal retaliation." "I know. Do you still believe that?" He shook his head. "No." I waited. He pulled out the chair but didn't sit. I kept calling the signature an electronic shortcut. I told myself it was expedient. He looked at me. It wasn't. It was disloyal. The word landed differently because he chose it. Not mistaken, not rushed. Disloyal. I said, "Yes." He nodded once. "I'm sorry." "I believe you're sorry. Is that enough to come home?" "No." His eyes lowered. "What would be enough?" "I don't know yet. Tell me what to do. I won't manage your apology. That's not what I mean. It has been our pattern. You make a choice with your parents. I explain why it hurts me. Then I tell you how to repair it." He sat down. "So what happens? You stay somewhere else. For how long? Until being apart is no longer the only boundary you respect." He pressed his hands together. "Are you ending the marriage?" "Not today. Do you want to?" "I want to know whether there is a marriage without your parents inside every decision. There can be. You have to prove that." "How?" "Counseling. Full separation between your parents and company control. No private company planning with them. No access to my signature, service records, photographs, or owner credentials." He listened without interrupting. I continued. "If Carl and Diane return after the review, they return only to define jobs. They do not control federal work. They do not speak for ownership. They do not use family to avoid supervision." Eric looked toward his father's empty desk. "Dad won't accept that. Then he won't return. And if I agree, agreement is the beginning." He sat quietly. Then he said, "I'll do counseling. Choose someone who isn't connected to your parents." "All right, and you remain on leave until I complete the operations review." He nodded. "Can I call you tonight?" "No." "Tomorrow? Email me about the appointment." He stood. At the door, he turned back. "I left my ring on the counter because I wanted you to be scared. I know. I'll take it when I earn the right to wear it." He left the ring where it was. Then he walked out carrying only his travel bag, while the company credentials remained on my desk. The next morning, I changed every company password connected to ownership, banking, and federal registration. I didn't remove Eric from ordinary operations. I limited each account to the work assigned to it. His dispatch access could schedule trucks. His vendor access could confirm capacity. Neither account could submit ownership certifications. I sent the new authority list to our active clients. Maya replied, "Received." The other clients acknowledged it by the end of the day. No one celebrated. They simply knew who could sign. Eric emailed me that afternoon. I scheduled a counseling appointment for Monday at 6. He included the counselor's name and office address. He didn't ask whether he could come home afterward. I attended. During the first session, Eric said the bid started as his father's idea. The counselor asked, "When did it become your decision?" Eric looked at the floor. "When I uploaded it." Carl wasn't there to absorb the blame. Diane wasn't there to explain anyone's intentions. The counselor waited. Eric said, "I knew Jennifer hadn't approved it. That was the first test." He told the truth without attaching an excuse. We met every Monday for the next month. Eric stayed in a small furnished apartment near the office. He paid for it from his salary, not company funds. He returned to work after my operations review. On his first morning back, he arrived at 8 and asked for the current dispatch schedule. He didn't enter my office without knocking. It felt formal. For a while, formal was useful. The company remained smaller than we had expected. The hotel account was gone. 2 clients reduced their commitment to shorter terms. Vendors required written approval before holding extra capacity. We paid our bills, but there was little left after that. The federal award went to another finalist. I removed every projection connected to it. Carl sent one message after hearing the award was final. "You threw away what I built." I didn't answer. The federal review continued. While it remained open, Carl and Diane had no company access. Diane called me 3 weeks after the summit. "I'm not asking to come back," she said. "What are you asking? Can I send you something?" "What? A list of every place I used your photograph or service information?" I was quiet. She continued, "I checked the event files and old marketing folders. I should have done it when you first asked. Send the list." She emailed it that afternoon. There were 9 entries. Some were harmless, like a luncheon program I had approved. Others were materials I had never seen. Beside each one, she wrote whether it had been deleted, collected, or removed from circulation. She had kept one printed copy of my retirement photograph in a family album. "Do you want that destroyed too?" she asked. "No. A family album is different." "Thank you. That doesn't mean you may scan or publish it." "I understand." That was her first test. A week later, Diane was invited to a local business luncheon. The organizer wanted her to speak about the summit. She emailed me before accepting. "They may ask about Walters Coastal. I will say I'm not currently involved in the business. I will not discuss the federal review or your service. Is that acceptable?" I said yes. She followed the boundary. I heard about the luncheon from someone else. Diane had done exactly what she promised. That didn't restore our old dinners. It gave us one accurate action. Carl handled things differently. He corrected the email he had sent to clients, but only after Eric insisted. The correction said he no longer represented Walters Coastal, and that questions should go to me or Eric. He did not admit that his first message had been misleading. He did not apologize again. When the federal review concluded, he was no longer restricted from speaking with us. That didn't return his job. Eric met him for coffee and came back quiet. "What happened?" I asked. "Dad wants his sales position back. What did you say?" I said there isn't a position under the old arrangement. "Did you offer something else?" "No. That was the second test." Eric sat across from me in the conference room. "He said you made me choose." "What do you think?" "I think I should have chosen the company rules before you had to force the question. And the marriage? I should have chosen honesty before there were sides." He didn't ask me to praise him. He opened the sales tracker and reassigned Carl's unfinished accounts between us. Carl stopped speaking to me after that. He called Eric every Sunday. Sometimes Eric answered. Sometimes he didn't. I never asked him to end contact with his father. I required separation from company control, not family exile. Diane remained outside the business too. After the review ended, she asked whether she could help with one client dinner. I said no. She accepted the answer. The federal review did not restore the bid. It did not replace our lost client. It did not repair our reputation for us. The written closeout confirmed that my withdrawal controlled and that Walters Coastal had corrected its signing permissions. Future federal submissions would require a direct owner certification from my account. We did not pursue another federal contract that year. There was enough work to do with the clients who remained. 3 months after the summit, Maya visited our office for a quarterly review. Eric presented the delivery report. When she asked who had authority to change pricing, he pointed to the signature page in her account folder. "Jennifer approves contract changes," he said. "I approve daily scheduling." He didn't look at me for reassurance. Maya nodded and moved to the next question. After the meeting, she waited near the elevator. "He's different," she said. "He's trying." Is trying enough? Not by itself. The elevator arrived. She smiled slightly. "That sounds like you. I watched the doors close." Eric continued counseling even when I couldn't attend. He gave me the appointment confirmations without being asked. He also created a written operations manual so no single person could leave the company without transferring access again. He added himself to that rule. One evening, he brought the manual home for my review. He still didn't live there. We sat at the kitchen counter with 2 cups of coffee. His wedding ring remained in the small dish near the sink where I had placed it. He saw it. "I meant what I said about earning it," he told me. "I know." "Do you want me to keep trying?" "Yes." He looked at the ring but didn't touch it. 2 weeks later, I invited him to dinner at home. He arrived with groceries instead of flowers. He cooked pasta and washed the pan before we ate. When his mother called, he answered. She asked whether we were together. "We're having dinner," he said. I could hear her asking another question. Eric replied, "That's between Jennifer and me." He didn't sound angry. He didn't apologize for the boundary. After the call, he placed his phone face down. "She'll get used to it," he said. "She'll have to." He nodded. That was the 3rd test. At the next counseling session, I agreed that he could move back into the house, not into our old routine. He used the guest room. We kept separate finances beyond shared household bills. Company conversation stayed at the office unless something was urgent. The first week was awkward. He asked before moving anything in the closet. He returned keys to the bowl near the door. He told his parents they could not visit without both of us agreeing. Carl refused to visit under those conditions. Diane came once for coffee. She brought no company files, no event plans, and no advice. When she saw my uniform garment cover near the closet, she didn't mention it. Before leaving, she said, "Thank you for letting me come." I said, "Thank you for asking." That was all we could manage. It was enough for that day. If this story moved you, subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. A few nights later, I found Eric standing beside the bedroom closet. He had finished moving his last shirts from the furnished apartment. The guest room remained his, but there wasn't enough closet space there. "Where should these go?" he asked. I showed him an open section on the left. He hung the shirts carefully. My Army service uniform was still inside its garment cover at the back, the same place it had been before the summit. Eric looked toward it. "You don't have to move that for me," he said. "I know." He closed his empty suitcase and carried it to the guest room. I removed the uniform from the closet. The jacket had been cleaned after the reception. Every ribbon and badge remained where it belonged. I ran my hand over one sleeve, then opened the garment cover completely. I didn't need the uniform displayed for Eric or his parents. I didn't need it printed on a company brochure. I wanted it where I could see it without moving everyone else's clothes first. I returned to the closet, shifted Eric's shirts to the left, and cleared the first space beside the door. I hung my uniform at the front of the closet, uncovered and in full view.